All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Quarantine Theater Company read. This is going to be Gattaca. Gattaca is an amazing movie, and I just thought it would be fun to do a read of it. We have a small group of 5 here today. I'll be doing the scene description. We have Anne, who will be reading as Eugene. And we're all reading as like multiples here, but I'll just say the main Angi, who will be reading as Detective Hugo, Jessica, who will be reading as Irene, and Logan, who will be reading as Jerome slash Vincent. So let's see what happens in Gattaca. Gattaca by Andrew Niccol. Fade in. A white title appears on a black screen. As nightfall does not come at once, neither does oppression. It is in such a twilight that we all must be aware of change in the air, however slight, lest we become victims of the darkness. Justice William O. Douglas. The title fades off, replaced by a second title. I not only think that we will tamper with Mother Nature, I think Mother wants us to. William Galen. The second title fades off, leaving a dark screen. The darkness gradually gives way to the dawning light. We are confronted with a sight of a barren, empty landscape, a wide expanse of wasteland. Suddenly, without warning, an elephant tusk falls from the sky and crashes into the parched ground. The earth-shattering impact causes the tusk to rebound once in slow motion before finally settling to the desert floor in a cloud of dust. The first tusk is quickly followed by a second, also dropping from the heavens. It lands near the first. Another tusk smashes to earth several yards away. Yet another comes crashing into the foreground. Finally, the dust settles upon the graveyard of tusks. Dissolved to a barren, empty landscape. In another region of the wasteland, a forest of tree trunks suddenly rains down from the sky. The trunks thump to the hard ground, also rebounding in slow motion. Cleanly sawn, branchless palm-like trunks, they come to rest in the dust, only to be followed by a second cascade of lumber. When the dust finally clears, the felled tree trunks lie in a huge log jam on the desert, dissolved to a barren, empty landscape. Next to descend from the sky, a torrent of firewood, one shower after another crashing to a plain, enough chopped lumber to fuel 1,000 hearths. Dissolved to a barren, empty landscape. Joining the rest of the debris is a deluge of slate sheets of shale from a great unseen quarry in the sky, come slamming to earth. Some of the pieces shattering, some rebounding into the air until the granite litters acres of landscape as far as the eye can see. Titles are spaced appropriately throughout the preceding sequence. The final title reads, the camera commences a long, slow pullback from the pile of elephant tusks. Gradually, they are revealed as human fingernails, magnified many hundreds of times. The tree trunks are mere hair follicles, the firewood, whiskers, the slate, flakes of skin. Interior incinerator, early morning. A naked man, 30s, seen in profile, is crouched upon a metal floor inside a small brushed stainless steel tank, rubbing his skin raw with a wire brush. Jerome Morrow. There he is. Having completed his scrupulous ablutions, Jerome arches his lean frame through the small oval door of the metal room with practiced ease. Securing the thick, fireproof window door behind himself, he turns a switch to release gas into the vacated chamber. The gas instantly ignites in what is now revealed to be a gleaming modern stainless steel custom-made incinerator. We refocus on a magnified close-up of his exfoliated flesh in the incinerator as it blackens, curls, and burns. Jerome covers himself with a slick robe and steps into a pair of backless slippers. Interior, Eugene's condominium, early morning. Jerome emerges from the incinerator room into a large, luxurious loft-style condo containing a bizarre assortment of equipment, arranged somewhat like a production line. Long, scrupulously clean metal workbenches are arranged along one entire wall. Laid out on the benches in neat rows are dozens of plastic bags, some filled, some unfilled. Instruments on trays, various types of tweezers, scissors, and other less familiar utensils. Round stainless steel containers filled with hairs of differing lengths and other body matter. Jerome approaches another man slumped over one of the benches, Eugene. He clutches an empty vodka bottle. He is snoring lightly, sleeping off the night before. As Jerome gently prizes the bottle out of his hand, We are struck by a similarity of Eugene's face to Jerome's. Jerome pulls Eugene's chair back from the desk with surprising ease, a wheelchair, a modern ergonomic design. Jerome wheels Eugene to a bedroom and with some difficulty hauls the larger man onto the bed. Through his alcoholic fog, Eugene feebly cooperates, his paralyzed legs a particular dead weight. After covering Eugene with a blanket, Jerome enters a bathroom containing a surgically clean stainless steel basin, sink, shower, and toilet. Beside the toilet stands a large industrial-style stainless steel refrigerator. Donning protective gloves, Jerome opens the liquid nitrogen cooler refrigerator. A cloud of condensed water vapor billows out. Revealed inside the fridge are racks of labeled jars and silicone pouches, some containing a yellowish liquid, some a deep red liquid. In front of one of the jars is a handwritten shopping list: truffles, cigs, vodka. Jerome smiles to himself as he retrieves the note along with one of the jars. He checks the jar's label. Satisfied with the date written there, he breaks the seal and pours the contents into the clear silicone pouch of an IV-like device lying on the steel bathroom counter. He seals the pouch and checks the apparatus by opening the valve on its fine tube and squirting a small quantity of the liquid into a nearby toilet bowl, as it would test the syringe. We remain on Jerome's face as he reaches between his legs and inserts the pouch. Neat rows of slim fingertip-sized plastic sachets filled with deep red-colored liquid. He removes his gloves, selects one of the sachets, and carefully adheres the sachet to the pad at the end of his index finger. He prepares a second sachet for his middle finger. Jerome then applies skin-colored cover-up makeup to the sachets, blending them in with the color of his fingers. Jerome, still dressed in his robe, climbs a large spiral staircase to the floor above. Interior, Jerome's condominium, early morning. He emerges at the top of the staircase into a similarly large loft-style condominium. Through the floor-to-ceiling window that opens to the balcony, we see that dawn is only just starting to leak into the night sky. In the bedroom, Jerome removes a shirt from a dry cleaning bag. Printed on the bag, confidentially guaranteed. He emerges from his bedroom dressed in a smart, albeit unconventionally cut suit. He adjusts his tie in the mirror, careful not to disturb the sachets attached to his fingertips. Interior, investigator's pool, morning. A lone man swims in ferocious laps of freestyle in what appears to be a pool of enormous length, yet he never reaches the pool's end. We pull wider to reveal that the man is swimming against an artificial current in a pool barely larger than himself. Abruptly, the man stops and stands up, the fast-floating current instantly stilled. We glimpse the face of investigator Lucas, 30s. He has a youthful, yet rigid face. We have the impression that he does not swim for pleasure. Exterior condominium complex, morning. It is still early as Jerome exits the building underground parking garage in an immaculate Studebaker Avanti and proceeds down the long straight driveway. He exchanges a wave with a gardener trimming a lawn. The whir of the car's electric-powered engine belies its conventional appearance. Exterior, Gattaca Aerospace Corporation, day. Jerome's car exits a highway and turns up the sweeping road leading to the parking lot of Gattaca Aerospace Corporation, a sleek, modern, low-rise industrial compound boasting perfectly manicured landscaped gardens. Interior, Gattaca Aerospace Corporation, day. Jerome strides purposefully up to the entranceway with hundreds of other Gattaca employees. He carries himself with certain arrogance, a cool detachment. All employees wear similarly unconventionally cut suits, short coiffed hair, and robust tans. The Gattaca employees are a seemingly equal split of men and women with a diverse range of ethnicities. They filter through a row of channels supervised by security guards. Each channel contains a computerized security device featuring a slim groove in which the employee places a finger under the watchful eye of a security guard. Jerome gives a polite nod to a guard as he places his index finger in the groove. His fingertip is jabbed with the finest of needles and a minute blood sample taken. The blood specimen confirms Jerome's identity, an ID photograph appearing on a computer screen. Out of the corner of his eye, Jerome spies a young woman entering through the adjacent channel. She is also sneaking a glance in his direction. Irene. Catching each other looking, they both quickly avert their eyes. As Jerome enters the computer facility of Gattaca Aerospace Corporation, he furtively glances at the pinprick puncture in his fingertip sachet. Somewhere in deep space, A Gattaca spacecraft skirts an asteroid, taking advantage of the rock's gravitational pull. The craft slingshots deeper into the black void. Then abruptly, the craft and the asteroid freeze in mid-space, suddenly reverse direction and proceed forward again, the spacecraft taking a slightly adjusted course. We pull back to reveal that the journey is merely a highly realistic graphic representation on the Gattaca computer screen operated by Jerome. Appearing simultaneously alongside the computer animation is a seemingly never-ending column of computer instructions for this celestial navigation, the incomprehensible language of the computer programmer. And it looks like a bunch of numbers. Jerome is transported, plotting a path through the heavens. As his fingertips fly across the keys, he does not once take his eyes from the screen. His is one of hundreds of ergonomically designed workstations arranged in ever-widening circles in a huge, circular, well-appointed, if antiseptic room. Each curved desk contains a computer terminal consisting of a keyboard and a slim, transparent screen, behind which is seated a programmer, designing software for the Aerospace Agency. At the center of the room is a donut-shaped command console, chairs facing outwards from which operations are monitored. Floor-to-ceiling smoked glass curved walls offer the only concession to nature, a tinted view of a man-made, meticulously landscaped garden. Jerome tears himself away from his screen and picks up a discreet mini-vac. He vacuums between the keys of his keyboard. Director Joseph, 50s, a shorter, official-looking man, approaches. His assistant, Irene, stands at his shoulder.
You keep your workstation so clean, Jerome.
Next to godliness. Isn't that what they say?
The director smiles at the notion and places a computer disk on Jerome's desk.
I reviewed your fight plan. Not one error in 100,000 keystrokes. Phenomenal. It's right that someone like you is taking us to the belt. You have a substance test.
The director briskly departs, Irene in tow. At a nearby workstation, a painfully thin programmer, Napoleon, perks up at the mention of the test. Jerome merely shrugs and pretends to reach down and scratch his ankle. However, he surreptitiously produced one of Eugene's transparent specimen bags from his sock. An extreme close-up reveals the bag's contents: flakes of skin, hair follicles, eyelashes, a fingernail. Cupping the bag in his hand to avoid detection, Jerome sprinkles the fraudulent body matter over his keyboard, desk surfaces, and the floor around his workstation. He opens his desk drawer and casually scatters the remainder of the bag. Finally, he inspects a comb already laced with 2 hair follicles. Jerome rises from his workstation and makes his way towards the testing lab. Interior Gattaca Aerospace Corporation Testing Laboratory Day. White-coated Lamar, 40s, buzz cut, a man's man, checks Jerome's eyes with an instrument. Satisfied with his examination, he passes a transparent plastic container to Jerome. Standing directly in front of the technician with his back to the camera, Jerome opens his fly. A steady stream of urine begins to flow into the container from Jerome's hidden pouch.
Jerome, never shy, pisses on command. You got a beautiful cock. I ever told you that, Jerome?
Every time I'm in here.
Jerome refastens his trousers.
I see a lot of cocks. I speak from experience. Yours is a beautiful example. Why didn't my folks order a cock like that for me?
Lamar pours the urine sample into a high-tech device where it is instantly analyzed. The urine identifies Jerome while also registering a negative drug reading. The computer reads, valid.
If everything goes to plan, this could be the last time I see you for a while. 1 week to go. Please tell me you're the least bit excited.
Like at the end of the week.
Jerome departs. Interior Gattaca restroom day. Jerome enters the restroom and glances at the toilet stalls. Only three in the bank of 20 is occupied. He tarries at the mirror above the uniform line of basins, unnecessarily reknotting his tie. A toilet flushes and a colleague exits one of the stalls. He and Jerome exchange a nod. When the man has exited the restroom, Jerome enters the man's vacated stall. Interior Gattaca toilet stall day. Jerome immediately feels around the back of the toilet bowl and detaches a secret stainless steel container. With surprising swiftness and dexterity, Jerome removes an extremely fine contact lens from each eye and drops the pair into the toilet bowl. He inserts 2 replacement lenses from the container and reattaches it in its hiding place. Jerome flushes the toilet and exits the stall. He checks in the mirror that his new contact lenses are properly inserted. Interior Gattaca corridor day. Walking back along one of the long glass-walled corridors, Jerome becomes aware of a peculiar noise in the complex, or to be more precise, a lack of noise. The incessant tapping of computer keys has stilled. As Jerome gazes through the glass-walled corridor, we see the reflection of his face, deep in thought.
The most unremarkable of events. Jerome Morrow, Navigator First Class, is only days away from a one-year manned mission to 951 Gaspera on the outer asteroid belt. Nothing so unique in that. Last year, over 1,000 citizens from every walk of life embarked on some space mission or another. Besides, selection for Jerome was virtually guaranteed at birth. He was blessed with all the physical and intellectual gifts requiring such an arduous undertaking, a genetic quotient second to none.
Jerome's gaze drifts to the sky.
Now, there's truly nothing remarkable about the progress of Jerome Morrow, except that I am not Jerome Morrow.
Exterior beach, dusk, 30-odd years earlier. A starry sky. The camera tilts down and finds palm trees swaying against the setting sun.
I was conceived in the Riviera, not the French Riviera.
The camera tilts down further to find a Buick Riviera parked in a deserted beachfront parking lot on a polluted stretch of beach.
The Detroit variety.
Through the car's steamed windows, we see Jerome's mother and father, Maria and Antonio, early 20s, making love.
They used to say that a child conceived in love has a greater chance of happiness. They don't say that anymore.
Interior family planning clinic day. Maria, wearing a medical gown, lies on an examination table, feet in stirrups. A nurse, 40s, wheels an instrument tray towards her. Maria suddenly disengages her feet from the stirrups and swings her legs off the table.
What are you doing?
I can't do this.
I told you the government pays. It's all taken care of.
No, you don't understand. I can't.
The nurse places a comforting hand on Maria's shoulder.
The doctor will give you something.
I'm not doing it.
Honey, you've made one mistake.
The remark stings Maria.
I've read your profile. I don't know about the father, but you carry enough hereditary factors on your own. You can have other children.
Not like this one.
Honey, look around you. The world doesn't want one like that one.
Maria gets off the table and reaches for her clothes laying across a chair.
You don't know what it will be.
The nurse watches Maria as she dresses, genuinely bewildered.
The child won't thank you.
Interior delivery room day. We focus on a crucifix dangling in a rosary. Tilting up, we find the rosary clasped between Maria and Antonio's intertwined hands.
Those were early days. Days when a priest could still persuade someone to put their faith in God's hands rather than in those of a local geneticist.
Bathed in sweat, Maria gives a final push on the delivery table. While still attached to his umbilical cord, the heels of the newborn baby boy is immediately pricked by a masked nurse. A minute drop of blood is inserted into an analyzing machine. Even as the baby is put into Maria's arms, page after page of data begins to appear on a monitor, pulsing warning signals throughout the spreadsheets. Two assisting nurses exchange a look. Antonio senses something amiss.
What's wrong?
Of course, there was nothing wrong with me. Not so long ago, I would have been considered a perfectly healthy, normal baby. 10 fingers, 10 toes. That was all that used to matter. But now, my immediate well-being was not the sole concern.
Antonio turns his attention from his baby to the data appearing on the monitor. We see individual items highlighted amongst the data. Nerve condition, probability, 60%. Manic depression, 42%. Obesity, 66%. Attention deficit disorder, 89%.
My destiny was mapped out before me. All my flaws, predisposition, and susceptibilities, most untreatable to this day. Only minutes old, the date and cause of my death was already known.
Antonio focuses on a final highlighted item on the monitor's screen. Heart disorder, 99%. Early fatal potential life expectancy, 33 years.
The name? For the certificate.
Antonio.
No, Vincent Antonio.
With a computer stylus, he signs the nurse's handheld screen. Exterior tract home backyard day. 2-year-old Jerome, referring to by his given name of Vincent for most of the following flashback, running with a toy rocket falls more in clumsiness than fatigue. Maria suddenly whisks up the toddler.
Oh, Vincent, Vincent, Vincent. I can't let you out of my sight.
Maria frantically listens to her young son's heartbeat. For his part, Vincent appears surprised by the attention. Maria places a portable oxygen mask over Vincent's mouth.
I was born Vincent Antonio Luca, and from an early age I came to think of myself as others thought of me. Chronically ill. Every skin, knee, and runny nose treated as if it were life-threatening.
Interior daycare center day. Maria and Antonio drop off dark-haired 2-year-old Vincent at a daycare center.
And my parents soon realized that wherever I went, my genetic prophecy preceded me.
While healthy children play outside on tricycles, clamber over jungle gyms, and finger paint, the preschool teacher shows Vincent into a room where children with obvious disabilities sleep on mats. Maria wheels around and marches out of the center with Vincent in her arms. Antonio follows close behind, pleading with his wife to see sense.
They put off having any more children until they could afford not to gamble, to bring a child into the world in what has become the natural way.
Exterior home day. Antonio reluctantly shows off his spotless Buick Riviera to the prospective buyer.
It meant selling the beloved Buick.
The two men haggle over the price while Maria, holding Vincent in her arms, looks on. Finally, money and a pink slip are exchanged.
My father got a good price. After all, the only accident he'd ever had in that car was me.
As the buyer drives away, Antonio shrugs to Maria to hide his disappointment. Exterior genetic counseling office day. Antonio, Maria, and 2-year-old Vincent exit a parked commuter bus and enter a genetic counseling office building bearing the sign Procreation. Interior genetic counseling office day. A geneticist stares into a high-powered microscope as Antonio, Maria, and 2-year-old Vincent are shown into the office by a nurse. On the counter beside the geneticist is a glass-doored industrial refrigerator containing petri dishes arranged in racks several feet high.
Put up the dish.
While Antonio and Maria take a seat in front of the television monitor, the nurse puts a labeled petri dish under a video-equipped microscope. The geneticist swings around in his chair to greet his clients. 4 magnified clusters of cells, 8 cells on each cluster, appear on the television screen.
Your extracted eggs, Maria, have been fertilized with Antonio's sperm, and we have performed an analysis of the resulting pre-embryos. After screening, we're left with 2 healthy boys and 2 healthy girls. Naturally, no critical dispositions to any of the major inheritable diseases. All that remains is to select the most compatible candidate.
Antonio and Maria exchange a nervous smile.
First, we may as well decide on gender. Have you given it any thought?
We would like Vincent to have a brother, to play with.
The geneticist nods. He scans the data around the edge of the screen.
You've already specified blue eyes, dark hair, and fair skin. I have taken the liberty of eradicating any potentially prejudicial conditions, premature baldness, myopia, alcoholism, and addictive susceptibility, propensity for violence, and obesity.
We didn't want diseases, yes.
We were wondering if we should leave some things to chance.
You want to give your child the best possible start. Believe me, we have enough imperfection built in already. Your child doesn't need any additional burdens. And keep in mind, this child is still you, simply the best of you. You could conceive naturally 1,000 times and never get such a result.
He's right, Maria. That's right.
Maria is only half convinced, but the geneticist swiftly moves on.
Is there any reason you don't want a left-hand? Is there any reason you'd want a left-handed child?
No.
Some believe it is associated with creativity, although there's no evidence. Also, for sports like baseball, it can be an advantage.
I like football.
I have to warn you, Mr. Lucia, he's going to be at least a head taller than you. Perfect for a crick in the neck in 16 years' time.
Antonio beams proudly.
Anything I've forgotten?
We want him. We were hoping he would get married and have children. We'd like grandchildren.
I understand. That's already been taken care of. Now, you appreciate I can only work with the raw material I have at my disposal for a little, but for a little extra, I could also attempt to insert sequences associated with enhanced mathematical or musical ability.
Antonio, the choir.
I have to caution you, it's not foolproof. With multi-gene traits, there can be no guarantees.
How much extra?
It would be 5,000 more.
Antonio's face falls.
I'm sorry, there's no way we can.
Don't worry, you'll probably do just as well singing to him in the womb. We can implant the most successful pre-embryo tomorrow afternoon.
Maria is standing at the 4 magnified clumps on the screen.
What will happen with the others?
They are not babies, Maria, merely human possibilities.
Removing the petri dish from beneath the lens of the microscope, he points out the 4 minuscule specks.
Smaller than a grain of sand.
Dissolve to interior tract home day. A red pencil draws a mark on a doorway at the height of a child's head. The child moves away and the name Anton, 11, is written beside the mark by proud father Antonio.
That's how my brother, Anton, came into the world. A son my father considered worthy of his name.
There is little physical similarity between 11-year-old Anton and 13-year-old Vincent standing beside him, apart from their height. In fact, Vincent is mortified to see that his younger brother's mark is a fraction of an inch higher than the mark beside his own name, Vincent, 13. Vincent runs from the room. Exterior beach day. 13-year-old Vincent and 11-year-old Anton sit together on a windswept beach. Anton picks up a broken shell and deliberately slices the tip of his thumb with the sharp edge. He hands the shell to Vincent, who hesitantly follows suit.
By the time we were playing at Blood Brothers, I understood that there was something very different flowing through my veins.
The two brothers press their thumbs together, merging the blood.
And I need an awful lot more than a drop if I was going to get anywhere.
Exterior beach later in the day. While Antonio and Maria doze under the beach umbrella, Anton and Vincent either enter the water, diving through the waves. From above, we watch their 2 young bodies swimming beside each other beyond the breakers.
Our favorite game was chicken. When our parents weren't watching, we used to swim outside the flags as far as we dared. It was about who would get scared and turn back first.
Suddenly, Vincent stops swimming, pulling up sharply in the water, exhausted and fearful. He watches Anton swim on into the distance.
Of course, it was always me. Anton was by far the stronger swimmer, and he had no excuse to fail.
Interior school classroom day. A teacher gives a physics lesson. The bespectacled 13-year-old Vincent has his arm energetically raised at each opportunity, but is never called upon. Eventually, he lowers his arm in defeat.
My genetic scarlet letter continued to follow me from school to school. When you're told you're prone to learning disabilities, it's sometimes easier not to disappoint anybody.
Exterior street night. 13-year-old Vincent stands at a cul-de-sac at the end of a long, straight, deserted street. He plays basketball in the middle of the street to represent the sun and begins to unwind a huge reel of string attached to a ball. 11-year-old Anton walks in place behind him. Several yards along the trail, a bead is threaded through the string to represent the planet Mercury. How many astronauts are there anyway? I bet I could be one.
You're standing on Venus.
Anton lifts his foot. There is a dead a bead beneath it. Interior, exterior car satellite dish, dusk. Vincent has developed into a handsome 17-year-old. His spectacles hidden, he and the young woman are necking in the front seat of a beat-up car, parked overlooking a huge satellite dish.
I was popular enough until I got around that I wasn't a long-term proposition.
The lovemaking intensifies. The young woman moves down Vincent's chest and unzips his fly.
Those who didn't know already could easily find out for themselves. There's certainly no problem coaxing the information out of me.
We remain on Vincent's face as he climaxes. The young woman turns her head away from the spent Jerome, and out of his view trickles semen from her mouth into a clear specimen vial.
And blame them. You need to know if a prospective husband can qualify for a mortgage or life insurance, or can hold down a decent job.
Interior home day. In the living room of their modest home, the dark-haired 17-year-old bespectacled Vincent sits opposite his parents. The crestfallen Vincent has a book in his lap entitled Careers in Space.
Vincent, you have to be realistic. A heart condition like yours,
Care. I'll take the risk.
it's not just you they have to be concerned about. Perhaps we could get you one of those new pacemakers. They're not perfect, but
For God's sake, Vincent, don't you understand? The only way you'll see the inside of a spaceship is if you're cleaning it.
Vincent looks at his father in disbelief. On a dinner table on the other side of the living room, 15-year-old Anton looks up from the biological specimen he is studying with a magnifying glass. Interior personnel office, waiting room day. 17-year-old Vincent hides his glasses in his pocket as he enters a waiting room. He gazes around at the other applicants.
My father was right. Didn't matter how much I lied on my resume. My real CV was in my cells. Why should anybody invest all the money to train me when there were 1,000 other applicants with a far cleaner profile? Of course, it's illegal to discriminate. Genoism, it's called, but no one takes the law seriously.
As Jerome enters the office, we focus on a door handle he has just touched.
If you refuse to disclose, they can always take a sample from a door handle
Vincent hesitates before shaking the personnel officer's outstretched hand.
or a handshake.
We focus on Jerome's envelope attached to his application form sitting in the manager's desk.
Even the saliva off your application form.
Sitting opposite the manager, Jerome's face falls. The manager puts a clear plastic cup in front of Jerome.
But for the most part, we know who we are. If all else fails, a legal drug test can just as easily become an illegal peek at your future in the company.
Vincent saves the manager the trouble and exits the office, leaving the cup where it sits. Exterior beach day. 17-year-old Jerome walks up the beach to find 15-year-old Anton sitting with a young woman Vincent had previously dated.
I didn't blame Anton for his free ride. Can't blame someone for winning the lottery.
The young woman hastily departs. Later, the two brothers face each other on the sand. Anton is the more statuesque of the two. You sure you want to do this? Vincent's answer is to walk towards the water. Anton smiles mockingly at his brother's grim game face and follows. Brother's grim. From the aerial view, we watch Vincent and his younger brother Anton swim beyond the breakers.
When was the last time we swam together? Out into the open sea, like always, knowing each stroke towards the horizon was one we had to make to get back to the shore. Like always, the unspoken contest.
We watch the two young men swimming stroke for stroke. They swim far out, beyond the point. Suddenly, Anton starts to slow his strokes, becoming labored until he becomes motionless in the water. He begins to sink like a stone. Vincent, realizing Anton is no longer beside him, turns back to lend support. Vincent takes him in a lifeguard hold and begins to nurse him back to shore. Finally, the two boys are coughed up onto the shallows. They collapse just beyond the waterline, exhausted, gasping for air. Antonio and Maria arrive on the scene. Anton is the first to recover while Vincent clutches his side, his face screwed up in pain. Maria kneels down, starts to administer to Vincent, but his father, Antonio, is unable to conceal his anger and contempt for Vincent.
Vincent, you damn fool. You could have killed Anton with your ridiculous contest. Why should he risk his life to save yours? When are you going to get it through your thick head? You can't compete with your brother. Why try?
Maria takes Antonio aside. Anton and Vincent exchange a Why didn't you say anything?
Why didn't you? It's okay. It's the way they want it. It's confirmed everything in the minds of my parents. That they had taken the right course with my younger brother and the wrong course with me. It would have been so much easier for everyone if I had slipped away that day. I decided to grant them that wish.
Interior home night. Anton stands at the mantelpiece in the dimly lit living room. He gazes at a framed family portrait. Vincent's face has been torn out of it, and suddenly spies Vincent exiting. Oh, he suddenly spies Vincent exiting the front gate, carrying a suitcase. Anton goes to shout Vincent's name, but the words don't get out. Exit Gattaca Dawn. A pickup truck, parked with the cleaning crew, pulls into the rear of the building. They are no longer strictly the migrant workers we have come to expect, but rather a mixture of ethnicities, all members of a genetic underclass that does not discriminate by race. As Vincent exits the truck and turns toward the camera, we discover that he has now matured into the man we have come to know as Jerome. The only visible differences are the glasses he wears and his hair, still naturally dark.
Like many others in my situation, I moved around a lot the next few years, getting work where I could. Must have cleaned half the toilets in the state.
We follow Vincent through the course of a day, cleaning restrooms, toilets, picking up litter, sweeping, washing windows, gazing at the aerospace workers below. The building is part of the Gattaca facility, located near shuttle launch site. Throughout the day, with the regularity of 747s, Vincent spies rocket ships in the distance, launching into the sky. Jerome's is the only head that turns and looks up. Long after the sun is set, Vincent is still working. Another rocket ship lights up the darkness. Vincent gazes forlornly into the heavens. Exterior Gattaca, glass wall day. Vincent cleans a window from the outside, staring in at the arrogant Gattaca employees entering the security channels, a sample taken from their fingertips. Jerome, in the trance, constantly cleans the same spot of glass. He fails to notice the older janitor, Caesar, appear beside him.
Would you get the glass, Vincent? Don't clean it too well.
What do you mean?
You might get ideas.
If the glass is clean, it'll be easier for you to see me when I'm on the other side of it.
Caesar smiles at Vincent's cockiness. Interior Gattaca day. Vincent empties garbage into the dumpster adjacent to Gattaca. His attention to detail is something of his attention is drawn to something in the trash. A discarded manual on celestial mechanics and navigation. He wipes food residue off the corner. Interior astronomy and telescope shop day. A forest of telescopes on tripods in an astronomy lab. Vincent enters the store with a bucket and squeegee and immediately goes to clean the storefront window. The store owner looks up from his tabloid, Star magazine.
Where's Earl?
He fell. Lucky it was only the second floor.
The owner nods and returns to his magazine. When he looks up again, one of his tripods is missing its telescope, and Jerome is nowhere to be seen. Interior invalid housing project night. Jerome returns to his bare apartment. He removes the cloth covering the bucket to reveal a dumpy-shaped telescope snugly wedged inside. He starts to pore over his collection of textbooks. Other tattered space paraphernalia adorns the walls.
Of course, the best test score in the world isn't going to get me in the front door unless I had a blood test to go with it.
Interior Gattaca night. While his fellow workers sit on the steps of the service entrance to Gattaca, passing around an unbleached bottle of clear liquor, Vincent sits some distance away studying his textbook. In the absence of a computer, he practices typing commands on a keyboard hand-drawn on the flap of a cardboard box. A tiny, seedy-looking man, German, 40s, appears from nowhere and takes a seat beside him.
Vincent, I'm German. That's my name.
He looks at the apprehensive Vincent up and down.
So what do you think?
I think you can do something, provided you know what you're doing and if you can meet the terms.
Vincent pulls a plastic e-money card from his overalls.
Got a photo of yourself?
Vincent produces a snapshot of himself, torn from the family portrait. German feeds the snapshot into the pocket-sized computer he carries. The picture is instantly scanned and appears on the computer's small color screen. German returns the photograph and hastily departs. Caesar, the elderly janitor, notices German's exit.
I thought I told you not to get any ideas.
High up the side of a building, washing windows, Vincent pauses occasionally to practice typing commands on his keyboard, cardboard keys, viewing a screen in his imagination or the night sky itself. He hears his name being called.
Vincent. Vincent.
German? Is that you?
Vincent, come down. I found him.
Interior invalid housing project, night. German leads Vincent through a maze of corridors.
For the genetically superior, success is easier to obtain, but it is by no means guaranteed. After all, there's no gene for fate. And when, for one reason or another, a member of the elite falls on hard times, their genetic identity becomes a valued commodity for the unscrupulous. One man's loss is another man's gain.
He gives a conspiratorial nod to another passing DNA broker, both men carrying their palm-top computers.
He has a heart of an ox. He could run through the goddamn wall if he could still run. Actually, he was a big college swimming star.
I'm hoping he's not just a body.
No problem. Before he dropped out, he was an honor student right to the majors.
How do I square the accident?
It happened in Australasia. He checked in yesterday. No family complications. No record he ever broke his neck. As far as anybody's concerned, he's still a walking, talking, fully productive member of society. You just have to get him off the pipe and fill him in the last 2 years of his life. I mean, your life.
German has stopped walking as if they have arrived.
Where is he?
German reaches toward a paraplegic sitting in his wheelchair in the stairwell directly in front of them, his head slumped, an incriminating bong nestled in his lap. German pulls the man's head up by the hair. Eugene. Despite the patchy, unkempt beard and thick glaze over his eyes, he bears a strikingly similarity to Vincent. Vincent holds a mirror beside the face of the lethargic Eugene to compare his own reflection.
What did I tell you? Which one's the mirror?
What's the hair color in his profile?
German checks an entry in his computer. Hair, blonde.
Yeah.
Bleach my hair.
Why are you inventing problems? You two are a couple goddamn clones. You look so right together. I want to double my fee.
Hey, how tall are you?
"4'6".
Vincent grins, realizing that Eugene is referring to his seated height. There is an instant connection between the two men.
Okay, how tall did you used to be?
6'1".
Too tall.
You can wear lifts.
Yeah, even lifts. I'm never that tall.
There's a way.
Backstreet surgery night. In a primitive operating theater, Vincent lies on a table, his lower legs masked off for surgery. The surgeon switches on a surgical saw and lines it up with the hand-drawn incision marks. Metal struts are ready to elongate his legs. Interior invalid housing project, apartment day. German wheels the dazed Eugene into the apartment, cluttered with a space paraphernalia. One wheel of his resting wheelchair is flimishly held on with a wire. Vincent follows behind on crutches, both lower legs in casts and cross braces. Vincent signs the contract German puts in front of him. Exterior street outside a bar, day. Eugene, glassy-eyed, strides out of a bar, past camera and into the street. We hear a squeal of brakes and a sickening thud. Interior housing project apartment, day. Eugene awakens with a scream, bathed in sweat, arms bound to the bed, and only real piece of furniture in the room. Vincent, sitting on a crate beside him, soaking a towel in a bowl of water, is taken by surprise. Vincent continues to scream and thrash, fighting against the bindings. Vincent stuffs the towel into Eugene's mouth and holds onto his arms.
I'll confess. At first, I wondered if I had rescued a man who was already dead.
Interior housing project, apartment, bathroom, night. Vincent holds Eugene's head over the toilet bowl as he vomits violently. Eugene's paralysis and Vincent's broken legs make the operation doubly difficult. Finally, Eugene has nothing left in his stomach to vomit. He drops to the floor in exhaustion. Vincent, also exhausted from the effort of holding Eugene over the bowl, joins him on the broken linoleum. Both men stare up at the ceiling that carries a map of the constellation.
Okay, Jerome?
Yeah. You want to go dancing tonight?
Vincent smiles. Interior Housing Project Apartment night. Eugene turns his nose up at the plate of boiled meat and potatoes that Vincent puts in front of him. Vincent catches the look.
What's wrong with it?
Well, I think you better choose the menu. After all, you're learning how to be me. I'm not learning how to be you.
Suit yourself.
Listen, I don't want you to think I'm ungrateful, but I know you and that little broker. What do you call him?
German.
Yeah, you're both going to a lot of trouble. Maybe you can con somebody into believing you're me and get your foot in the door, but once you're inside, you're on your own. I'm sure you're sincere. But I was being groomed for something like this myself. Even without the accident, I don't think I would have made it. The point is, how the hell do you expect to pull this off?
Jerome merely stares back as if he thought of failure has never occurred to him.
Don't know exactly, Jerome.
At least you're honest. Call me by my middle name, Eugene. If you're going to be Jerome, may as well start getting used to it.
Interior Housing Project Apartment night. Jerome looks through Eugene's personal effects, including a photograph album. He is drawn to a swimming medal inside the album at a page displaying a photo of a wealthy, austere mother. Eugene evidently comes from money. Even as he wheels into the room of his rickety wheelchair, we see that Eugene has the bearing of someone of a good breeding. He has a bag of blood on his lap. More blood is being drawn from his arm through an IV. Eugene catches Jerome looking at the album.
I have to know where you came from.
If anybody asks, tell them the truth. Your family disowned you in your disappointment, Jerome.
What about this?
Wrong color, it's silver. It's not easy living up to this.
Eugene wheels away. Interior Housing Project Apartment day. Jerome practices writing with his right hand, trying to replicate Eugene's signature.
Needs work.
Be a right-hander.
No one orders southpaws anymore?
Interior Housing Project Apartment day. A pair of spectacles lie on the bed. Jerome, still wearing his twin casts, sits behind an optometrist portable examining device. German hovering in the background, an optometrist custom fits Jerome with the gossamer thin contact lenses.
Myopia is a dead giveaway. One of the earliest and most justifiable of the quality of life corrections. Anybody with impaired vision is certain to be suffering from all the other deficiencies of a non-advantaged birth.
It's no good. I can see an edge. He may as well walk in there with a cane.
Interior Housing Project Apartment day. The optometrist has been replaced in the living room with a black market dentist who bonds Jerome's small gapped teeth to match Eugene's perfectly straight white picket fences. Interior Housing Project Apartment day. Hair already bleached and cut to match Eugene's hairstyle. Jerome sits in a chair against a hastily erected white paper backdrop. From his wheelchair, Eugene puts the finishing touches to Jerome's hair. He wheels himself out of the way. The final accomplice in Jerome's deception, a black market computer graphics designer, takes Jerome's photo with a video camera. Manipulating the captured image, the designer morphs Jerome's face into the face of Eugene. The resulting photo that spits out of a printer is neither one nor the other, but an acceptable combination of the two. Interior Housing Project Apartment day. Eugene is starting to prepare Jerome's specimen bags for the first time. He winces in pain as he plucks several hairs from his head. Jerome, now out of his cast, prepares job applications.
You really need that much?
More than that. Get used to it.
God, what wouldn't you do to oh God, what wouldn't you do to leave the planet?
Leave? Just a few million years ago, every atom in this hair and our bodies was part of a star. I don't see it as leaving it. See it as going home.
God. You're serious, aren't you?
Jerome ignores him. Having learned his lesson, he hands the envelopes to Eugene to lick the flaps. Interior Housing Project Department Day. Jerome is doing a last-minute cram on a geriatric computer from the late 1990s. Checking the time, Jerome hurriedly picks up the shirt that Eugene has been ironing from a prone position on the floor.
It's not too late to back out.
You don't know what a relief it is to not be me. Are you sure you want the job?
What about you? What's in this for you, Eugene?
Listen, I bagged this stuff anyway. I may as well pay my rent.
Jerome hurries to the bathroom where, with some difficulty, he inserts his urine device for the first time. The new improved Jerome emerges into the living room ready for his interview. Interior GATTACA Corporation Testing Lab Day. Jerome emerges from a bathroom and hands the technician his plastic cup full of fraudulent urine and inserts it into the analyzer.
Congratulations.
What about the interview?
That was it.
Exterior GATTACA Day. Jerome, scarcely able to disguise his delight, exits GATTACA, trying not to stare at the superb specimens who are now his colleagues.
The majority of people are now made to order. What began as a means to rid society of inheritable diseases has become a way to design your offspring. The line between health and enhancement blurred forever. Eyes can always be brighter, a voice purer, a mind sharper, body stronger, a life longer. Everyone seeks to give their child the best chance, but the most skilled geneticists are only accessible to the privileged few.
In a nearby park, model children from model parents play together.
Everyone who is the product of an altered DNA is proudly referred to as a DAN, a self-made man or woman or man-child.
Interior Housing Project Apartment Night. Jerome wheels Eugene out of their housing project. He takes in the neighborhood for the last time. We focus on a poor couple cradling an infant.
Those parents who, for moral or more likely economic reasons, refrain from tampering with their offspring's genetic makeup, or who fail to abort a deprived fetus, condemn their children to a life of routine discrimination.
We glimpse other people in the neighborhood. They appear poor, but for the most part physically normal. However, a pall of gloom hangs over them.
Officially, they're called invalids. They're also known as godchildren, men of God, faith births, blackjack births, deficients, defectives, genojunk, genomes, fucked up people. They are the mentally or the healthy ill. They don't actually have anything yet. They may never. But since a few of the preconditions can be cured or reversed, it's easier to treat them as if they were already sick.
As they enter a car driven by Jerome spies a beautiful young girl, 11, sitting on the steps of the housing project, staring forlornly into space. While there is no outward sign of any deficiency, she is somehow aware that she is damaged goods. Jerome glances in the rearview mirror.
By means of a donor, I have cheated the system for the last 4 years to open doors that would otherwise be closed to me.
Jerome wheels Eugene into a palatial condominium complex where the two men now reside. Interior GATTACA, present day. We return to Jerome's reflection in the glass. Other GATTACA employees are gradually gathering behind him.
In the guise of Jerome Morrow, I have risen quickly through the ranks of GATTACA. Only one of the mission directors has ever come close to discovering my true identity.
We now see that Jerome has been gazing out through the window the whole time, the sight that has brought a hush to the complex. Through an open office door lies the body of a large man, the murdered director, lying where he was just been discovered, in a pool of his own blood.
Strange to think, he may have more success exposing me in death than he did in life.
Jerome wipes his eye and also goes to investigate. We focus on an extreme close-up of his eyelash. Loosened by Jerome's hand, it breaks free and floats gently down to the floor where it comes to rest. Interior GATTACA Aerospace Corporation morning. Detective Hugo, late 40s, wearing a crime scene hygienic suit and gloves and a full clear mask, looking more like a surgeon or a toxic waste worker than a detective, places the blood-spattered computer keyboard alongside the director's shattered skull. The indentations match the blunt corner of the keyboard. Hugo detaches the dangling keyboard from its parent computer and seals the likely murder weapon in a marked, transparent plastic bag. A crew of similarly suited homicide detectives systematically vacuum the surrounding office area with metallic, industrial-looking mini-vacs. Once each workspace has been vacuumed, the transparent plastic vacuum bag is detached, sealed, and labeled. Other detectives video the scene with camcorders. Video prints spit out of the cameras for instant inspection. Exterior Gattaca Landscaped Gardens Day. A Silicon police tape cordons off the crime scene. From the landscaped garden, a crowd of Gattaca employees view the proceedings through the glass walls.
Awful.
Yeah, awful didn't happen sooner.
Nervous smirks from nearby employees. We focus on Jerome, standing slightly apart from the others. He does not appear to share the joke, or perhaps even hear it. Jerome watches, wide-eyed, as a detective approaches his workstation with a mini-vac. A chill goes through Jerome as the detective's cleaner passes over his desk. Jerome is distracted by a smear on the window, obstructing his view. Without thinking, he breathes on the glass and rubs the smear away with his elbow. Nearby, elderly janitor Caesar notices Jerome's facetiousness act and reads the panic in Jerome's eyes. Director Joseph suddenly appears at Jerome's shoulder. Standing a pace behind the director, computer notepad in hand, is Irene.
You're lucky to be getting out of this.
We're still going ahead as planned?
The launch window is only open until the week's end. Tragic though this event may be, it hasn't stopped the planets turning.
He glances towards a group of detectives headed by Hugo.
You'll have to excuse me, Jerome. I have to meet with the authorities. Naturally, we're cooperating in any way, although I won't tolerate a major disruption. I wish I was going with you, Jerome.
As the pair depart, Jerome and Irene exchange a glance. Irene is also aware of Jerome's unease. Interior Gattaca Corridor Day. We focus on Jerome's eyelash, still lying on the floor, a huge crescent-shaped hair that fills the screen. Suddenly, there is a roar of a mini-vac and the eyelash is sucked up. We follow the eyelash's journey down the throat of the cleaner into the specimen bag where it is sucked against the bag's clear plastic wall. Interior Gattaca Computer Complex Day. The director's corpse is sealed in a plastic body bag and wheeled away in a gurney. The blood and other body matter from the murder scene is sucked up by the portable wet vac and a sample bag appropriately labeled. Exterior Gattaca Courtyard Cafeteria Day. A chime sounds over the PA, followed by an announcement. Thank you for your cooperation. Please return to your workstations immediately. The programmers get to their feet en masse and begin filing into the workroom.
What? No counseling?
Interior Gattaca Computer Complex, Director's Office Day. A woman assistant whose keyboard was used in the attack has to pause as a maintenance worker gives her workstation a final spray to return it to its former pristine condition. A new keyboard is plugged into her monitor to replace the one taken as evidence. Interior Gattaca Computer Complex Day. Jerome opens his desk drawer to check his comb, now plucked completely clean. He carefully places two of Eugene's hairs to the comb and scatters another bag of fraudulent matter around his workstation. Interior Gattaca Simulator Room Day. In a large bare room of simulator, a simulator does slow dance back and forth on its hydraulic legs, mimicking the path of the spacecraft Jerome will soon be on board. The simulation ends and Jerome exits the simulator through a small door. Irene hesitantly approaches, carrying a slim electronic tablet.
Excuse me, Jerome. Sorry to bother you.
Jerome turns, not disappointed by the interruption.
No bother.
I've been asked to compile a log for the investigators. They want to know everyone's whereabouts last night.
Last night, I was home.
Irene makes a note with her stylus.
And that be verified? Were you alone?
No, it can't be verified. Yes, I was alone.
Irene makes another note.
Looks bad, doesn't it, Irene? What about you? Where were you last night?
I was at home.
Were you alone?
Yes.
So we don't know for sure about you either.
No.
Why don't we say we were together?
Why would we do that?
Well, I have better things to do this week than answer the foolish questions of some flatfoot, don't you? Shall we say we spent the evening together?
Irene is still unsure whether or not Jerome is serious.
To be convincing, Jerome, I would have to know what that was like.
Irene turns and departs. Jerome watches her go. Interior Eugene's condominium night. The paraplegic Eugene, seated by the window, meticulously cuts a long fingernail into numerous clippings. He places the clippings in small plastic bags and seals them. He then begins to fill tiny sachets with blood. He fills as he hears Jerome enter down the spiral staircase as with the groceries.
You didn't forget the truffles.
Jerome places the items in a refrigerator in the bathroom and retrieves a bottle of vodka. The vodka incongruous looking beside the blood and urine specimens. Joining Eugene at the workbench, he pours them both a drink.
Who died?
The mission director.
You wish.
I found him in his office this morning. Beaten so bad they had to check his name tag.
Eugene takes in the news, a smile broadening across his face.
What an act of benevolence, a service to the community. So that's it. Now there's nothing between you and the ignition.
He was still warm when they confirmed.
Oh, this calls for a celebration, doesn't it?
Just crawling with hoovers.
So what, you didn't kill him, did you?
Jerome shoots him a glance for the inappropriate remark.
That's not the point.
Hey, how much of you can be there? Even if J. Eggers do find something in the week, you'll be slightly out of their jurisdiction. Come on, we've got to get drunk immediately.
Gonna have to earn your supper. I got my final physical tomorrow.
Jerome wheels Eugene's chair to a specially constructed platform that allows the wheels to spin in midair. Jerome tapes an electrode to Eugene's chest and attaches the wire to a slim recording device. Eugene begins to spin the wheel of the chair faster and faster. Jerome monitors Eugene's steady heartbeat through a set of headphones. Interior GATTACA Aerospace Corporation Computer Complex night. The complex is virtually empty, only a handful of the hundreds of programmers working late into the night. Irene approaches Jerome's workstation on the pretext of delivering some documents. Trying to act casually, she looks under the papers on his desk, then opens the top desk drawer. We see an extreme close-up of the comb lying there, the two hairs trapped between the teeth of the comb. Irene removes one of the follicles and drops it into an envelope she is carrying. Interior 24-hour sequencing lab, night. Sequencing while you wait. Similar to a 1-hour photo lab, the store, little more than a booth, displays a price list on the wall. Full sequence, $80. Irene waits in line with a cross-section of other customers. She checks the contents of the envelope that contains the hair. The young woman in line ahead of her allows the technician to take a swab from her full lips with a Q-tip.
How old?
Me?
The specimen.
Oh, I kissed him 5 minutes ago. A real good one.
Overhearing, several people in line snicker.
See what I can do.
The technician hands the swab to an assistant. The young woman is handed a number and takes a seat. Irene hands her envelope over the counter. She, too, is handed a number. We follow Jerome's follicle as another technician places it in an analyzing machine. Interior exterior sequencing lab, parking lot, night. The technician returns the envelope to Irene along with a miniature compact disc.
9.4. Very nice. Yes, quite a catch.
Oh. Irene does not appear to share the technician's enthusiasm. She emerges from the sequencing lab and enters her car. Taking a palm-top computer from her purse, she inserts the disc into the computer. Jerome's counterfeit genetic profile appears on the screen. The details confirm her worst fears. Exterior Michael's Dinner Club, night. Jerome and Eugene, dressed to the nines, pull up in the car to a darkened doorway in a poorly lit street. A valet appears out of the windows, out of the shadows. Familiar with the car, he goes immediately to the trunk to retrieve Eugene's collapsible wheelchair. Jerome tips the valet a credit card wiped through a device. Interior Michael's Dinner Club, night. The chic, elegant establishment inside belies its darkened exterior. Jerome wheels Eugene into a decadent dinner club full of odd assortment of people. They are immediately greeted respectfully by Michael, the owner and maitre d'. Jerome and Eugene are obviously regulars.
Good evening, gentlemen. Your table is ready. Not long now, sir. You'll be upstairs before you know it. We're going to miss you.
Much as I'll miss your stroganoff. I'd like to take one of your chefs with me.
Interior Michael's Dinner Club, night. In a secluded booth, Jerome and Eugene toast from a little bottle of 1999 vintage Bordeaux. Eugene drinks longer than Jerome. Jerome dabs his mouth with a napkin. He fails to notice a minute flake of skin dislodged from his chin. We follow the flake as it comes to rest beneath the table. Later, Eugene and Jerome watch couples dancing a samba on the dance floor. A waiter vacuums the table with a discreet handheld miniature vacuum while a waitress clears the plates. She accidentally drops a knife onto Eugene's leg.
I am so sorry. Did I hurt you?
Honey, if you'd hurt me, I'd be cured.
Eugene, the worse for drink, gropes for the waitress's leg, but she easily avoids his clumsy pass.
You want to be a real-life spaceman?
Jerome, always aware, scanning the club, suddenly spies Napoleon, his Gattaca colleague, on the other side of the room. Napoleon is taking a hit from a vial concealed in his hand. Jerome abruptly turns his back to avoid being recognized.
Get out of here.
Yeah, you're right. There's more atmosphere where you're going.
Interior exterior car, night. Driving along the freeway, Jerome's car suddenly dives down an escape road. Eugene looks sideways at Jerome.
You drive.
Interior exterior car, night. The car careens around and around a small circular building, a cloud of dust billowing up behind the car. We focus on a brick wedged between the car's gas pedal. Eugene is at the wheel, Jerome in the passenger seat. The hard turn is repeated with increasing recklessness, Eugene fighting to control the bucking car.
I gotta stop.
Keep going. Keep going.
Finally, the car spins to a halt in a cloud of dust. When the dust settles, it is revealed that they have been circling the base of a huge satellite dish in a desolate location. Exterior satellite dish, night. Eugene lies on the hood of the car, leaning against the windshield, drinking from a bottle of vodka. In the background, the unmanned satellite dish. Jerome relieves himself against the building at the base of the satellite.
You idiot. You could ruin everything with a stunt like that.
Eugene spies a spacecraft launching from Gattaca City.
At least up there, your pies will be what? Or your piss will be pies. Your piss will be something. You'll all be showing it.
With the pies, yeah. And it's like Evian by the time it's filtered.
What was that one?
Jerome doesn't bother to look in the direction of the craft, but merely glances to his watch. He joins Eugene on the hood of the car.
11.15 to the port. The maintenance crew.
How long do you stay up there before you go?
Day or so.
I still can't believe they're sending you to the belt. You, of all people, never meant to be born on a mission to discover the origin of life.
Eugene laughs to himself and passes the bottle to Jerome.
You should be going instead of me.
Jerome taps Eugene's lifeless leg with his foot.
Up there, that wouldn't be a problem.
You know, I'm scared of heights.
Interior Crime Laboratory autopsy room, night. The body and clothing of the mission director, lying on a metal examining table, is scanned with a blue light magnifying instrument. Fingernail specimens are taken for analysis. In another area of the laboratory, the labeled vacuum bags are attached to analyzers and the contents sucked out and automatically identified. ID names and photographs of Gattaca employees begin appearing on the computer screen at high speed, along with other personal details. All data automatically logged for later review. The photographs and personal details of Jerome and Irene flash past amongst the faces of other employees. We focus on a magnified close-up of Jerome's eyelash, still clinging stubbornly to the side of its specimen bag. We continue to follow its journey as it is finally sucked into the analyzer. Interior Crime Lab Analyzer Machine Night. Inside the machine, a minute cell-thin sliver is sliced from Jerome's eyelash and analyzed. An Investigator's Crime Lab Night. The severed human tongue sits on a tray in a sterile, sealed chamber. Using gloves that protrude through the chamber's glass walls, a face buried in a binocular eyepiece, the investigator takes a swab from the tongue. Let's see what you've got to say for yourself. The female assistant looking on hardly has time to smile at the remark before information begins to appear on a nearby computer terminal. The computer gradually builds a portrait of the owner of the tongue using genetic predictors. The investigator wanders over to the window with his assistant, reads the information from the screen.
Tongue is male, mature, blonde hair, brown eyes, light complexion, between 5'11" and 6'1", pronounced Caucasian nose, thin lips, weak chin, lobeless ears, prematurely balding, slightly bow-legged, broad shoulders, barrel chest, blind.
Blind. The tongue is blind?
Who cuts out the tongue of a blind man?
Someone who is mindful that the blind still speak. The investigator is alerted by a chime of his nearby computer. On the screen, he discovers the face of 20-year-old Vincent and the accompanying flashing message. Tracking invalid 8830001811505-10. New data. Interior condominium complex parking garage. Night. Having plugged his car into an overnight charger, Jerome pushes Eugene in his wheelchair to the elevator. Bottle in hand, Eugene leans over and vomits on the ground. Eugene shakes his head resignedly. Oh, Eugene looks drunkenly up at Jerome.
I'm sorry. Did you want it?
Jerome meets Eugene's gaze. There is a trace of bitterness in Eugene's drunken smile.
Let me get it for you.
Eugene bends down to scoop up some vomit with his hand, but the elevator arrives and Jerome quickly wheels him away. Eugene's head flops to the side as he passes out. Interior Eugene's condominium night. Jerome unlocks Eugene's condo and wheels his chair inside. We see the reflection in a full-length mirror as Jerome pushes Eugene to the bedroom. After removing Eugene's soiled clothing, he heaves the tall man from his chair and onto the bed.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Eugene.
You know, I wasn't drunk. I knew I was going what I was doing when I walked into the front of that car.
What car? Go to sleep.
I walked right in front of it. I was never more sober in my life.
Jerome looks at Eugene's lifeless legs, trying to cover his shock at the revelation.
It's all right.
Proud of you, Vincent.
Eugene's head falls back into the pillow.
You're drunk to be calling me Vincent.
But Eugene does not reply, drifting into sleep once again. Jerome pulls a blanket over him. On the verge of leaving, Jerome's attention is drawn to a wall on the far side of the room. Approaching the wall near Eugene's mirrored closet, he detects a faint mechanical whir coming from inside the adjacent condominium. Jerome contemplates investigating, but exits the condominium instead, climbing the spiral staircase down to his own. Interior Jerome's condo living room night. Jerome fastidiously vacuums with an upright cleaner. Using a hose attachment, he cleans around a picture frame that contains Jerome's original computer keyboard, hand-drawn on the flap of a cardboard box. Interior Gattaca Commuter Complex Day. In the vast room of the computer programmers, we pull focus to discover that we have been filming the complex through the transparent specimen bag containing Jerome's eyelash. On the mezzanine floor overlooking the scene of the crime, the investigator holds the bag transfixed by the lash. The lead homicide detective, Detective Hugo, finishes interviewing a Gattaca security guard and approaches the investigator, a large telescope in the background. Although Hugo is deferential to his more youthful superior, his body language betrays his displeasure. Hugo clearly does not relish the investigator's involvement in this case.
I don't understand why you were dragged out here, sir. It's hardly worth wasting your time. A know-nothing case like this.
A man's dead, Detective.
Of course, sir. We're checking the entry log, alibis, grudges.
Grudges? Grudges?
I look around. I see a lot of dry eyes. The director was not universally loved. He was leading the cutbacks in the program. You're looking at a room full of motives.
No, this is your man.
With respect, sir, it may be the only unaccountable specimen, but the profile suggests...
What about his profile? Hugo refers to a printout of 20-year-old Vincent's profile, including his genetic quotient. The 15-year-old photo of Vincent now bears little resemblance to his assumed identity.
According to this, he's a sick man, congenital heart condition. Who knows how long the specimen has been here, but there's an 80% chance the owner of that eyelash has already died himself from natural causes.
So there's a 20% chance he's not dead. Detective Hugo goes to comment further, then revises his remark in his head before speaking.
Even if this Vincent Luca is alive, it is likely he could bludgeon a man to death.
No, not likely. The investigator's tone suggests that the identity of the culprit is no longer a matter for debate. There is an awkward pause before the detective falls into step with his superior.
I take it you're thinking along the lines of a robbery gone sour, thief disturbed in the act?
The investigator merely shrugs.
Of course, that doesn't jibe with what we found. This was an angry killing.
Who knows with these deficients? His profile indicates a proclivity for violence.
I'll run a crossover on the eyelash for any family or associate connections.
I've already run it. There's no record of any living relative.
What a pity.
Detective Hugo, it's a simple case of lost and found. All we have to do is locate the man who's minus an eyelash, and this murder will solve itself. We focus on Jerome at his workstation. Although he continues to work, he clearly feels the presence of the investigators on the mezzanine floor behind him. A medical director approaches the programmer in the neighboring workstation. Napoleon, the programmer, Jerome encountered in the nightclub the previous evening. Napoleon, you're late for your substance test. Napoleon looks up, ashen-faced. Jerome intervenes.
Director Napoleon's helping me today.
The director regards both men suspiciously. Well, you take it for him, Jerome. The medical director departs. Napoleon, stunned by the reprieve, approaches Jerome's workstation and pretends to study the program on his computer screen.
Why did you do that?
Don't worry about it.
Interior Gattaca testing lab day. From behind, we observe Jerome standing in front of Lamar, issuing forth his steady stream of fraudulent urine. Interior Gattaca Aerospace Corporation Workout Center day. 20 Gattaca employees, identically outfitted men and women, run in a perfectly straight line towards the tranquil lake of the picturesque grounds, never getting any closer to their goal. They run at a steady 10 miles per hour on 20 identical state-of-the-art treadmill machines sunken into the floor and arranged in a uniform row facing a floor-to-ceiling window. The strain is beginning to show on many of the faces. The heart rate of each employee is monitored via a wireless electrode attached to the chest. Outside in the sunshine, the next batch of 20 employees limbers up in readiness for their physical. Jerome's only preparation consists of thoughtfully dragging on a cigarette and while staring out at the man-made lake. His nonchalant attitude disheartens nearby colleagues, including Irene, who is amongst the group of workers excused from the run by benevolent, overprotective trainers.
You're excused, Irene. You may resume your duties.
On the way into the workout facility, Jerome stubs out his cigarette in a stainless steel ashtray. Only we are aware of the slim credit card-sized recording device that he furtively slips out of his cigarette pack and secretes in his hand. As he takes his place on one of the treadmills and adheres the cordless electrode to his chest, Jerome surreptitiously attaches his device to the underside of the running machine's control panel. Interior Gattaca Workout Observation Room Day. From a mezzanine floor above the workout room, Lamar, the medical officer, monitors computer readouts displaying the pace and pulse of the runners on each of the treadmill machines. Interior Gattaca Workout Center Day. One by one, the Gattaca employees drop out until Jerome is the sole remaining runner. Several of the other employees stand around and watch Jerome run as they towel off. He appears under a little duress, staring directly ahead, seemingly in a trance. As we focus on his chest, only we are aware of the sound of his ferociously pounding heart making a lie in his calm exterior. Interior Gattaca Workout Observation Room Day. Jerome's heart registers a far more measured beat on the computer in his observation room. The director is at Lamar's shoulder, beaming proudly.
6 miles later, it's still beating like a goddamn metronome. Could play piano by that heartbeat of his.
The investigator, the detective Hugo, enter the observation room, escorted by Irene.
Director Joseph, this is our lead investigator.
The two men exchange a polite handshake. However, the investigator is immediately taken with the sole runner with his back to him on the treadmill below. How often do you test, Director?
Often.
Surely you know what you have.
We have to be certain. Once they turn up, we can hardly turn the boat around.
On the treadmill below, Jerome glances to his watch as he runs, the distress starting to show. Caught up in the conversation, Lamar has forgotten to end the workout. Remembering, he finally presses the warm down button, slowing the treadmill.
I swear if I went to lunch and came back, he'd still be there.
We focus on Jerome's recording device attached to the bottom of the control panel. It clicks to a stop, indicating that the bogus heartbeat recording has ended before the workout. The heartbeat monitor in the observation room suddenly races from 80 to 250 beats per minute. Lamar catches the discrepancy out of the corner of his eye, but before he can take a second look, Jerome has whipped his electrode from his chest. The physician shrugs it off as a glitch in the machine. The investigator has turned his back on Jerome to face the director. We believe we have a suspect.
What a relief.
This unaccountable specimen was found in the South Wing corridor. In the room below, Jerome nonchalantly steps off the treadmill, stealthily retrieves the recording device from beneath the control panel, and returns it to a cigarette pack. He casually wipes off drops of sweat from the machine with a towel, briefly glances to Irene with the investigators, and exits to the locker room. The director idly regards the image of Vincent on Hugo's handheld screen. He does not recognize the face.
An age of enchantment is being prepared as we speak. Irene will make it available to security.
Interior Gattaca Locker Room Day. Jerome wears his assured smile all the way along the corridor and into the now empty locker room. He exchanges a cheery greeting with his exiting colleague, enters a shower stall, closes the door behind him, and promptly collapses on the shower stall floor. The effects of the grueling workout are only now apparent. No longer sucking up the pain, he gulps air into his oxygen-starved lungs, his heart looking for a way through his tightened chest. He writhes in agony on the white-tiled floor, a brutal reminder of the physical fragility he seeks to disguise. Exterior Gattaca Garden, lunchtime. In Gattaca's perfectly landscaped gardens, Jerome, dressed and recovered from his ordeal, joins his colleagues for lunch at one of the umbrella-covered tables. While most of the others pick at unappetizing salads and take their individualized medication, Jerome carries a steak sandwich on his tray. The sight of the juicy steak is greeted with envious looks from his colleagues. Jerome pretends not to notice and rubs it in by liberally sprinkling salt onto the meat. However, when Jerome looks over towards Irene, she avoids eye contact. When she abruptly gets up and leaves, Jerome follows, thinking twice before depositing the napkin in a nearby trash can. A janitor reaches for the napkin. It is the old janitor Caesar from Jerome's former life.
I'll take care of that for you, Mr. Morrow.
The two men exchange a conspiratorial smile. Exterior Gattaca Wind Farm, afternoon. a forest of wind turbines supplying energy to the aerospace complex. However, the blades of the turbines are motionless in the still afternoon. Jerome finally catches up with Irene. She turns, unsurprised by his appearance. Standing beside her, he looks out over the complex as if he too has come for the view.
We were looking at each other. You stopped.
Irene also keeps her gaze ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean anything.
We were just looking.
I know about you.
Jerome turns to her, startled, trying to read her face. Irene takes a deep breath and abruptly plucks the long, dark hair from her head.
Here, take it.
Jerome, confused, takes the hair, more in reflex than intent.
If you're still interested, let me know.
Jerome contemplates the hair in his fingers for a moment, then deliberately lets it fall to the ground.
Sorry. Wind caught it.
Irene meets his gaze. There is not a breath of wind. The hair lies plainly visible on the ground. Exterior GATTACA Aerospace Complex afternoon. As Jerome and Irene walk between the wind turbines, Jerome pretends not to notice that Irene keeps furtively checking the pulse of her wrist. They pause in the shade.
They found our friend.
Friend,
It was a mercy killing after all.
they found an eyelash
Where?
in the South Wing.
Does it have a name?
Just some invalid Vincent somebody.
Jerome turns away to disguise his alarm. He quickly recovers.
Perhaps we ought to celebrate, Irene.
You celebrate Jerome?
Interior Eugene's condo night. A newly opened case of hair bleach.
I know what I ordered. Honey dawn, and you sent me summer wheat.
Jerome descends the staircase, taking the steps two at a time. He immediately goes to the refrigerator, removing trays of samples. Eugene abruptly hangs up the phone.
Called German.
Any particular reason?
We can't stay here.
What are you talking about?
They think I offend the director.
Eugene wheels himself over to Jerome, unconcerned.
What makes them think that?
Found my eyelash
Where?
in a corridor.
Could be worse. They could have found it in your eye.
Jerome half smiles despite the situation.
Come on, we're taking off.
I'm not going anywhere less than a week ago. Not on your life.
You don't understand. They'll make the connection. They'll hoover again. We should cut our losses.
Where is your head, Jerome? You're acting like a guilty man. They won't marry the eyelash to you. They won't believe that one of their elite navigators could have suckered them for the last 5 years.
They'll recognize me.
How could they recognize you? I don't recognize you. Anyway, you don't have a choice. You run, you may as well sign a confession, turn us both in right now. No, we stick this out, find out what we can change, what we can, but change nothing. This is a minor inconvenience, is all it is. We've taken worse heat than this. Jesus, if I'd known what you were going to go belly up at me at the last fucking gasp, I wouldn't have bothered, and you can't quit on me now. I've put in too much into this. Besides, the stuff is mine. I have other offers, you know. I could have rented myself out to somebody with a spine. You want me to wheel in there and finish the job myself? We'll take off all right from pad 18, just like we planned.
Jerome slumps down in a chair. Eugene's tirade starting to get to him.
And keep your lashes on your lids where they belong. How could you be so careless?
I'm sorry. I was crying.
Eugene is uncomfortable at the notion.
Save those tears.
Jerome shrugs awkwardly and pours them both a drink.
Really had other offers?
I sure could have.
Interior condominium incinerator night. The naked Jerome scrapes away at his skin with even greater ferocity than usual. After exiting the incinerator, he deposits all the incriminating trash he has collected during the day into the furnace and ignites the gas. Interior Eugene's condominium night. From outside, a car horn sounds. Jerome, in a formal suit and spectacles, abruptly enters the condominium. He goes to a closet and starts searching through Eugene's clothes.
Mind if I borrow a tie?
Eugene is more interested in the car parked outside the condominium. Irene sits in a convertible Citroen DS, dressed in a classic but provocative black suit. Unaware that she is being observed, she touches up her lipstick in a rearview mirror.
So it's not just the Hoovers who've got you rattled.
The one who said not to change anything. She's my ear to the investigation.
Is that all?
I've got enough on my mind without that.
If you say so. The stripe.
Good choice.
Jerome fumbles with the knot. From his chair, Eugene knots Jerome's tie for him. Jerome is intrigued that for once Eugene is abstaining. He has not touched his drink.
Not thirsty? Got enough virgin samples to last us the week.
I don't feel too good. I think I'm still drunk from last night.
Never stopped you before. For God's sake, stop plucking your hair. So I went to a lot of trouble to make sure you wouldn't go bald.
If I were you, I'd worry about myself. Haven't you forgotten something?
Jerome pockets the spectacles and enters the bathroom for his contact lenses. The horn sounds outside the window a second time and Jerome hastily exits. We stay with Eugene. Irene catches a glimpse of him before he moves away from the window. Jerome emerges from the building. As the couple drive away, Eugene wheels himself to the full-length mirror. He regards his own reflection for a moment, opens the mirror, a disguised door opening into the adjacent apartment. A cloud of condensed water vapor billows out. German, the DNA broker, emerges with an engineer. He sends an engineer on his way and joins Eugene at his desk. Eugene hands German a credit card and he wipes through his computer.
We still need to overhaul the backup generator. What's going on, Eugene? I thought he was going away, not you. You going on vacation?
You got it, German.
You deserve it.
Interior concert hall auditorium night. Jerome and Irene step over feet, apologizing as they go, eventually finding their seats in a box in a sold-out concert hall. On the stage below, a young pianist, a teenage prodigy, has already taken his place at the keys of a grand piano. The pianist removes his white gloves and begins to play, an extremely complex and beautiful piece we have never heard before. Irene looks to Jerome. He is clearly caught up in the music. Exterior invalid housing project, night. Hang around on street corners, menace in the air, a feeling of impending violence. Suddenly, unmarked police cars appear from all directions, blocking any escape route. Dozens of plainclothes detectives pour out of the cars and onto the street. People scatter, many running straight into the arms of the detectives. Others spilling out of the housing project are also immediately apprehended. The detectives quickly weed out those suspects not fitting Jerome's description: women, old men, and teenagers. They are shepherded off the street. A line of invalids is formed several hundred yards long. Detectives begin to laboriously move along the line, taking finger-prick blood samples from each suspect, instantly confirming their identities with portable analyzers worn on their hips. As if having the ID at the same time, two separate men suddenly bolt from the line, knowing that their blood will incriminate them. Other detectives watching for such escape attempts easily apprehend and escort them to the waiting police van. Investigator that it is safe to exit his car. The investigator appears irritated, only half glancing at the two men already in custody, apparently certain that neither one is his subject.
Not our fish, but something stuck in the net.
The investigator clearly does not share Hugo's enthusiasm. The detective offers the investigator an age-enhanced photograph, computer-generated from the last existing photo of Vincent as a 20-year-old.
This is with the age enhancement we're working with.
The investigator ignores the photo, preferring instead to trust his own eye as he wanders along the line of suspects.
As you requested, we've kept the parameters wider than usual.
The men they scrutinize are hardly mutants. The differences between an invalid and a DAN are subtle at best. Some shorter, some wearing glasses, some with receding hairlines, or bald, many with no discernible physical difference at all. The investigator is only halfway down the line before he turns and starts walking back to his car. The mystified detective Hugo follows his superior. We're in the wrong place. We're wasting time.
This is the most likely location.
The investigator wheels on Hugo, suddenly angry, clearly unused to having his judgment questioned. There's that word again. I have a feeling this man doesn't play the odds detective, not exactly a slave to probability. Is it likely that a man who has successfully eluded authorities for 15 years, a brutal killer, is going to come to us now like a lamb?
Is there something more we should know about the suspect, sir? I mean, besides what's on the sheet?
Since going underground, traces of this invalid have shown up at the scene for 4 serious felonies. Do you need any more than that?
With respect, sir, many perfectly innocent citizens have left specimens at many crime scenes. Maybe he's just unlucky.
I don't like anybody this unlucky. Widen the suite. The west side. Draw a 5-mile radius around GATTACA. Hoover some of the classier establishments. Random car stops.
We're already getting complaints about frivolous search.
This is a murder investigation. The public should be happy to cooperate. Go get this disease off the street. Interior concert hall night. A standing ovation. The young pianist on the stage bows deeply, soaking up the applause of the audience. The pianist tosses one of his white gloves into the front row where it is caught by an adoring fan. The second glove he tosses up to the box where Jerome and Irene are standing. Jerome snares the glove out of the air and immediately hands it to Irene. She promptly slips the glove on her own hand. The glove fits snugly over her 5 fingers. However, one finger of the glove remains unfilled. Jerome is stunned to realize that it is a 6-fingered glove.
You didn't know?
Yes. Yes.
You're angry.
How would I be angry? It's beautiful.
He quickly turns away to lead the applause. On stage, the pianist raises his hands to acknowledge the crowd. Both his hands contain a perfectly formed extra finger. Interior, invalid housing project. Prostitute's boudoir, night. From an upstairs window, we observe the investigator's car cruise slowly back into the squalid housing project. A man is buckling his pants at the window.
Oh shit, one of those Hoovers is back.
A prostitute, Valerie, a slender, Sith-like beauty, joins him at the window.
It's all right. He's here to see me.
Her client looks at her askance. Despite her assurances, he hurries into his clothes anyway.
Sonia, I can't see anyone else tonight.
Interior invalid housing project, prostitute's boudoir night. The investigator sits up in the bed, glass in his hand. Valerie lies on a tangled sheets, naked, making no effort to cover herself. She regards the investigator curiously.
I don't understand you, investigator.
The investigator glances idly in her direction.
You hunt us by day and fuck us by night. Do you only get it up for invalids?
The investigator smiles and rejoins her on the bed.
Wouldn't you be happier with one of your made-to-order whores?
You are so beautiful. Are you sure you weren't altered? This is not the face of the body of a godchild. How could something so lovely be a product of chance?
Is that what keeps you coming back? Look at you. Such angry, beautiful, perfect eyes. Do you ever wonder what they would see if they weren't quite so perfect? They will never see what I see.
The investigator tries to laugh off her assertion, but his tight-lipped smile betrays his displeasure. You have so much wrong with you. You'll be lucky to see next year. He roughly forces himself on top of her, but she remains defiant.
Are you so much more alive, investigator?
I'm not paying you to talk. Interior, exterior, Irene's car night. Irene drives, Jerome at her side. Cars are being flagged down by uniformed police officers. Irene slows down behind the car in front. Spine and Officer shine a flashlight in the eyes of the male driver up ahead. Jerome wipes the contact lenses from his eyes and flicks them out of the passenger window when Irene is not looking. An officer approaches Jerome and without a word opens an electronic testing kit worn on his hip. He removes a sterilized Q-tip and motions for Jerome to open his mouth so he can scrape the culture. Jerome waves his hand in front of his mouth, feigning embarrassment.
Better not. Don't want to give you a contaminated specimen, if you get my meaning.
Irene plays along, shrugging coyly at the cop. We see an extreme close-up of Jerome's hand as he furtively retrieves the hair follicle attached to his shirt cuff. With the hair already in his fingers, he pretends to pluck a hair from his head, faking a wince at the appropriate moment. The cop, wearing transparent latex gloves, takes the follicle and places it in a receptacle in his kit. After a short moment, the hair confirms Jerome's driving ID, which appears on the kit's electronic screen. As the cop departs, Irene looks questioningly at Jerome.
Thanks. You never know where those swaps have been.
Irene nods, however, clearly not convinced. She shakes the doubt from her mind.
I want to show you something.
She accelerates away. We see the road ahead from Jerome's point of view. Without his contact lenses, it is a blur. Interior Michael's club night. After closing time, suited detectives vacuum the club, in which Jerome and Eugene dined the previous evening. Michael, the owner, looks on disdainfully. Waiting in the background, the regular cleaners, most likely invalids themselves, smirk to each other, enjoying watching the cops do their work for them. Exterior Ocean Highway night. With no place to turn the car around, Irene parks on the cliffside of the 6-lane highway. In the darkness, she dashes from the car and without a second thought runs directly out into the heavy commuter traffic. Easily negotiating the oncoming cars, she emerges safely on the other side of the highway. Jerome, rounding the car from the passenger side, is about to follow when he suddenly pulls up sharply at the curb. We focus on his eyes, deprived of the benefit of their contact lenses. From Jerome's point of view, we see that the headlights rushing toward him are nothing but a series of fast-moving blurs that merge together. He is unable to distinguish between the vehicles or judge their distance.
Come on, we'll miss it.
Irene stares expectantly back at Jerome with her 20/20 vision, unaware of his predicament. Jerome puts a foot off the curb at the right moment and is almost collected by an oncoming car. Irene is taken aback at his mistiming. Does she detect a squint in Jerome's face? To Jerome, the figure of Irene on the other side of the highway is merely a featureless shape, but he feels her expectation. He touches the spectacles, still in his pocket, but they are an unthinkable option. He shakes the idea from his head and turns back to the swiftly moving highway. He makes up his mind he cannot allow himself to be shamed, even at the risk of life and limb. Hardly even glancing at the traffic, he suddenly bolts blindly across the road. Headlights hurtling towards him, cars fortuitously brushing past his heels, horns blaring. Jerome makes a final leap to the haven of the far curb, the rush of air from the large, fast-moving truck blowing him the final inches to the sidewalk. Irene is stunned by the near miss. She's about to comment, but Jerome takes her by the arm and ushers her toward the dunes.
Come on, we'll miss it.
Exterior beach dawn. Jerome and Irene huddle beneath the overcoat of the sun crests horizon, straining the sky with an ochre blush.
What did I tell you?
Jerome nods. However, to his eyes, the risking yoke is nothing but an out-of-focus abstract ink blot.
I envy you, Jerome.
You'll be next.
I don't think so. The only trip I'll make in space is around the sun on this satellite right here.
Irene turns to Jerome.
Listen, I don't really want to waste your time, and I really don't want you to waste mine. I don't know what you're after, but I have a feeling I'm not it.
Irene suddenly takes Jerome's hand and puts it up her sweater onto her breast. Although taken aback, Jerome makes no effort to withdraw his hand.
It's here, my heart. I'm careful. Weekly checkups. I'm on a drug maintenance program, blood thinners, diet. I just want you to know that this is what you'd be getting yourself into.
What exactly is wrong?
Nothing yet. I'll start experiencing symptoms in my late 50s, but unless they come up with something between now and then, I won't live much past 67.
Jerome's mouth drops a little, betraying his surprise at the statement from a woman plainly still in her 20s.
Of course, I still think about it every day.
Of course.
Interior pool morning. The investigator swims his race with the unseen opponent. The investigator's assistant, carrying a phone, tries to attract his attention. Exterior Jerome's pool morning. Jerome sits at his own poolside in his robe, feet dangling over the edge, smoking a cigarette. Eugene, from his wheelchair, is applying bleach to Jerome's hair and eyebrows with gloved hands. At the same time, Jerome plays a sleight of hand game with a syringe.
How was your evening?
Complicated. Couldn't stop her apologizing.
Your catch. No doubt she's worried that she would lower the standard of your offspring. Everyone wants to breed up. What's wrong with her?
You know how it is with these altered births. Somebody told her she's not going to live forever, and she's been preparing to die ever since.
You're not thinking of telling her, are you?
Of course not. But she'll have to know eventually.
She doesn't have to know. She doesn't want to know.
The camera travels down Jerome's scarred legs to find that the pool is completely drained. We now realize that it never contained water. A barren wasteland. A desolate landscape resembling the surface of the planet Mars. We pull back to find that we are peering at this forbidding desert through a circular aperture. Interior crime lab day. The investigator lifts his head from the eyepiece of an electron microscope through which he has been examining a tiny fragment of skin. The skin is identified as belonging to 20-year-old Vincent. Detective Hugo stands at the investigator's side, his attitude more respectful in light of this discovery. Detective Hugo points out a location on the computer-generated map.
Skinflake was found in Michael's restaurant. The employees are all accounted for.
Customer? Does this Michael's cater to misfits?
No, but one or two borrowed ladders have shown up there in the past.
The investigator understands the significance. They wander over to the blow-up photograph of the 20-year-old Vincent.
We have to consider the possibility he's playing somebody else's hand.
A smile gradually broadens across the investigator's face. Of course, he's the degenerate. He works at Gattaca. Why else would he find the eyelash near the washroom? Nobody stops to take a leak during a murder.
It's still possible the eyelash specimen came from a janitor, delivery man. It could have blown in through an open window.
The investigator appears not to be listening, his mind made up. He was afraid of being exposed. That's why he did it.
It's hard to believe he could be one of their elite workers. You've seen the security system. They know who works there. Even if you ignore the man's expiration date, his profile suggests that he doesn't have the mathematical propensity, let alone the stamina to pass their physicals.
Don't underestimate these imposters.
None of the ID photos match the enhancement.
A man can change his face, but blood is forever. Sample every employee within the parameters I gave you. Intravenous. Hugo's mouth drops open at the mention of intravenous.
You know their workforce, 2/3 at least fall into that category. We'll be closing down the operation for days. At least go with the fingertip sample or urine.
Blood from the vein. The investigator turns on his heel to prevent further protest. The detective and his assistants exchange looks of exasperation behind the investigator's back. Interior Gattaca Day. Jerome, drinking water, stands in front of a large video bulletin board. Among other things, it displays the electronic mugshot of 20-year-old Vincent alongside the recent computer-generated age enhancement of his face. Some distance away, Caesar, the elderly janitor, discusses the mugshots with a younger janitor. Sound.
Fucking mute. Look like anybody to you?
Not to me.
ugly son of a bitch, though, isn't he?
Jerome half smiles, realizing that the conversation is for his benefit. Having made it clear that they do not intend to expose their former colleague, the two janitors continue their rounds. Jerome crushes his paper cup. Forgetting himself, he drops the cup into the wastebasket. Interior craft day. Jerome familiarizes himself with the interior of the spacecraft under the supervision of Director Joseph and the mission commander. The screen that Jerome sits at is identical to the one he operates in the computer complex, displaying asteroid 951 Gaspara.
Somewhere in the dust of Gaspara is the key. Back to the beginning of the book, the life we became, with the original building blocks of who knows how far we can take the godding.
Even someone as advanced as Jerome will be last year's model by the time we're done.
Get your hopes up, Commander.
Irene enters the craft.
Excuse me, Mr. Morrow. The investigators have begun their testing.
This is so inconvenient, Irene. They can make an exception for Jerome.
I am afraid not.
I apologize, Jerome.
It's not your fault, Director. If your predecessor were still around, we may not be going to Gaspar at all. That's what I would call inconvenient.
Jerome exits the craft with Irene. Interior Gattaca Corporation corridor day. A line of male Gattaca employees snakes out the door and down the corridor. The investigator walks slowly down the line, trying to eyeball his suspect. Concentrating on the shorter, dark-haired men in the line, he looks straight past Jerome. However, as the investigator ignores him and walks by, we see a haunted look in Jerome's eyes. Interior Gattaca Testing Lab Day. Every available technician is working to accommodate the testing of the 1,000 or so programmers. 12 testing stations operate simultaneously. A homicide detective supervises each station. Jerome reaches the head of the line. He notices an exiting colleague holding a cotton ball to his arm. A nurse directs Jerome to Lamar's testing station. Lamar deposits the previous patient's labeled vial into a blood carousel under the watchful eye of the detective, clearly not relishing his assignment. Jerome rolls up his sleeves.
Those plungers, Lamar. What are you doing, opening a blood bank?
The syringes are clearly not Lamar's idea.
The gentlemen of law enforcement are concerned that my testing methods may have been compromised.
Lamar inserts a fresh syringe into Jerome's arm. As Lamar draws the blood, Jerome suddenly flinches and flexes his arm violently, causing the needle to bend and buckle, exiting the skin from a second puncture point.
Damn!
Having pulled away from Lamar's grasp, Jerome withdraws the bent needle himself, blood still squirting from his vein.
Jesus, I'm sorry, Jerome.
The large homicide detective winces and turns away from the red arcing spray, a splash of blood spattering his shoes. In the midst of the commotion, with his practiced sleight of hand, Jerome removes the vial from the syringes and replaces it with another concealed vial.
Must be out of practice, Lamar.
Lamar hurriedly takes the syringe from Jerome.
I've got enough here.
Get any more, you can always get it off his shoes.
The detective notices the spatter of blood across his bruises and, with a look of disdain, wipes it clean. He tosses the incriminating tissues down the hygienically sealed garbage chute. Lamar places Jerome's labeled vial in the carousel where it immediately analyzed by the computer. Jerome's legitimate employee ID code appears on the screen. Valid. Another employee enters the testing lab. Interior Gattaca Day. Jerome exits the testing lab with the gauze held to his arm. Irene is standing outside the door.
So you didn't do it after all.
Yeah, somebody beat me to it.
Interior Gattaca mezzanine floor later in the day. From above, the investigator and Hugo observe the final employee exit the testing lab. Lamar, following the employee out of the lab, throws a look of vindication up to the two cops.
That's the last.
Something's not right.
He's not here. It's a blind alley.
No, we've missed something. We hoover again.
We don't have the manpower.
Get it. From outside if you have to.
From what budget?
I'll take it out of your damn pension if you question my authority one more time. The investigator turns his back on his subordinate and idly contemplates the nearby telescope. Hugo resignedly relays the news to Director Joseph, who is standing some distance away. Joseph's immediate reaction is to march towards the investigator, Hugo trailing behind. Director Joseph collects himself as he notices the investigator's hand on the telescope.
Would you care to look in the telescope?
Thank you, no.
One look there and you would know why I can't possibly allow you to disrupt this operation any further.
You're so unconcerned that you have a killer in your midst.
Right now, your presence is creating more of a threat. I don't think you have any concept of what we do here, how meticulous our preparations must be. We are about to send 12 people through 140 million miles of blackness to rendezvous with an object the size of a house in the color of coal. So it's a rather critical to point them in the right direction, and we certainly don't need you looking over our shoulders. Besides, I don't believe there's any evidence that this killer is amongst us. I don't see too many other dead bodies littering the place.
No, but since there aren't too many live ones tonight either, you won't mind us conducting one further sweep. If he does not work here, then there should be no other trace of him. I think you'd better get some people out of bed, Detective. In the meantime, we can recheck his favorite haunt. Director Joseph quietly seethes. You see, Director, I prefer my microscope. Interior Eugene's condominium day. Jerome readies himself for an evening out, a bandage around his arm from the needle puncture. Eugene wheels himself in.
Where are we going?
I'm sorry, I've got plans.
Again.
She's already got her doubts. I have to act like nothing's wrong.
You'll be very convincing.
Jerome ignores the remark.
Where are you taking her?
Michael's.
Eugene looks at him askance.
Everybody goes there.
You may as well invite her here.
You be okay?
Oh, don't worry about your little pain cushion. To be honest, I'm looking forward to having the place to myself.
We'll still be able to talk when I'm away. The conversation will just keep getting longer.
How long?
By the time I'm at the belt, you phone and say, "How are you?" 45 minutes later, I reply, "Not bad. How are you?"
I guess I'd better have something important to say if it takes that long to answer.
Interior Michael's Club night. Irene and Jerome step off the dance floor of the smoky, decadent dinner club and take a seat at their table. Irene is agog at the strange assortment of patrons, the cigars, the laden dessert trolleys. It is all slightly off from the pristine world she is accustomed to.
What is this place?
Well, you've never been here. Let me order for you.
Jerome selects a chocolate torte from the trolley. Jerome savors a spoonful. Irene is tempted, but then remembers herself.
You better not.
She reaches for her elegant pillbox. Jerome takes another spoonful.
So sure of what you can't do. Do you even know what it tastes like, Irene?
Irene goes to deny but cannot. Michael suddenly approaches the table with a waiter in tow. Irene is about to steal a taste of dessert with her finger when their plates and glasses are whisked away and the table immediately hoovered. Michael whispers in Jerome's ear.
Take the side door.
Jerome looks up in time to see Detective Hugo coming through the front entrance with several other detectives.
Check for the lenses, hair pieces.
A detective shines a flashlight in the eyes of a male patron. A second detective tugs the hair of a second patron. Jerome takes Irene by the hand and escorts her off the side exit. Several other couples make for the parking lot.
Why are we leaving?
Those checks take forever.
Exterior Michael's Club, side alley night. Spilling out of the exit, Jerome and Irene find a burly plainclothes detective barring their way. Before the detective can say a word, Jerome has wrapped his fists in his jacket sleeve and smashed him in the face. He continues to beat the detective until he lies motionless on the ground.
Jerome!
Spying other detectives some distance away in the parking lot, Jerome leads Irene out of a hidden side gate.
What about the car?
Let's walk.
Who are they?
It's not safe. I shouldn't have brought you here.
Jerome drags Irene across a vast, desolate lot, lit only by moonlight. Feeling exposed, he breaks into a run.
Can't.
Come on.
My medication. I left it back there.
Get it later. Irene, please.
Irene realizes his seriousness. She begins to run with him. The clearing is wider than Jerome anticipated. They are only halfway across, extremely vulnerable if the detective think you look in their direction. Interior Michael's night. The investigator is grilling Michael, the club's owner. The investigator suspiciously regards the multitude of mini-vacs in the kitchen and the incinerator burning the refuse. Oh, you run a clean establishment.
You a health inspector?
Do you recognize this man?
My eyes aren't so good.
I bet. Hugo calls out from the side door when he has discovered his fallen colleague.
Sir?
The investigator hurries to him. Did he hit you with his fist?
Oh, more like a hammer.
Don't touch your face. Don't swallow. Don't spit. Quick, clean his teeth. Hugo uses a flashlight and a small dental-like implement to try and pick skin from Jerome's knuckles from between the detective's teeth. The investigator finds the hidden side door. Exterior desolate lot night. Lot in the moonlight splashing through deposits of mud and water. Just as the gate opens in the distance, Jerome hurls Irene into the safety of the undergrowth of the other side. Irene, out of breath, desperately feels for her purse.
Are you trying to kill me? Are you? Don't you understand? I can't do that.
Jerome tenderly removes Irene's hand from her purse.
You just did.
Irene looks back across the vast clearing they have just negotiated, realizing what she has just done. From across the other side of the clearing comes an echoing cry from the center figure. Vincent! Vincent! Exterior Michael's night. The investigator is about to cry out Vincent's name once again when he realizes Detective Hugo and the other detectives are watching him askance. What are you waiting for?
Where do we start?
We'll vacuum the streets if we have to.
We caught them trying to flush these, sir.
The investigator carefully examines the heart fills. Exterior Irene's apartment night. Jerome walks Irene to the steps of her apartment. Jerome thinks about departing, but Irene takes him gently by the hand.
So sure of what you can't do.
Jerome follows her inside. Interior Jerome's bedroom night. Jerome and Irene climb a staircase to her bedroom. Without another word, they begin to make love. Later that night, Jerome cannot sleep. He rises quietly so as not to disturb Irene. He silently opens the double windows of the upstairs bedroom. He carefully gathers his pillow from the bed and shakes it out the window. Jerome slowly turns to gaze at the wood floor. In the moonlight, we can see extreme close-up of a single hair lying in the floorboards. Jerome bends and picks up the hair, trying to identify it in the dim light. On his hands and knees, he tries to clean the floor with a towel. Irene turns over in the bed. Jerome freezes, but she continues to sleep. He realizes he may be spreading even more of his skin and hair over the floor. Overcome with frustration and the enormity of his task, he begins to quietly weep. Exterior or field, dawn. A light shroud of mist hangs over the trees that encircle a grassy clearing beyond Irene's building. Something lies in the center of the clearing. We jump cut to an extreme close-up of 2 or 3 blades of grass. Bristles rain down on the blades. Without access to his incinerator, the crouched naked figure of Jerome disposes of his whiskers, skin, and hair in an open field. His clothes sit in a neat pile at his side. He pours glycolic acid over his body and scrubs at his back, feet, and hands with a brush. There is a haunted, tortured look in his eyes as he tries desperately to rid himself of himself. Interior pool morning. The investigator swims obsessively in the aquatic treadmill. Interior Irene's apartment later that morning. Back in the bedroom, Jerome, partially dressed, holds Irene in bed. She softly touches the scars on his shins.
What happened?
You remember the 99 Chrysler LeBaron? It's the exact height of the front fender. Look right instead of left.
You're not so smart after all. I want you to know if it ever came to it, I'd be willing to get an oven from the egg bank. In fact, I'd rather use a donor egg if it came to it.
But if it came to it, then it couldn't have your nose. How perfect does your child have to be?
You hypocrite. Do you think for one moment you'd be doing what you're doing if it wasn't for who you are, what you are? Don't you get any satisfaction knowing that your children will be able to live to a ripe old age unless they do something foolish?
Precisely what scares me. That They won't do anything foolish or courageous or anything worth a goddamn.
Irene is taken aback by Jerome's passion, regarding him in a new light. Interior Eugene's condominium morning. Bottled water at the same time. Some of these sentences. He already has several other containers of urine on the table beside him. Interior Gattaca morning. The investigator and Detective Hugo keep a wary eye on the outfitted detectives re-vacuuming the empty computer complex with their mini-vacs.
My wife and I were thinking of starting a family.
Why not?
These new personality corrections I've been reading about.
You worried about the cost?
Not that.
They said the same thing about myopia and obesity. You think your children would be less human if they were less violent, angry, spiteful? Maybe they'd be more human. From where I sit, the world could stand a little improving. We dwell on the one detective in particular, snatching a garbage bag from Caesar, the janitor.
Don't touch that. It's evidence.
He puts a pile of discarded paper cups aside for later testing. Interior Gattaca Corporation later that morning. In the vast empty Gattaca complex, the investigator inspects a specimen bag containing Jerome's paper cup with Director Joseph and Hugo.
Positive saliva match. The cup was definitely used since the original sweep.
So we have two choices. Either a suspect came back to the murder scene for a drink of water, and I don't know anybody that thirsty, or he's here. We test again. You're right, Hugo. This was a desperate act. Someone had a lot to lose that night, perhaps their place in line. I'd like the profiles of everyone with an upcoming mission.
12 have a mission within the week.
This time I will supervise each test personally. Interior-exterior Gattaca morning. Jerome and Irene walk towards the entrance to Gattaca, spying the homicide investigation trucks parked at the rear of their building and the silhouette of the investigator in the doorway. Jerome pulls up sharply. Irene notices his unease.
What is it?
I forgot something at home. I'll see you later.
Jerome kisses her. Irene, also aware of the trucks, interrogates Jerome with her eyes.
I'll miss you.
Jerome is still focused on the entranceway.
When you go away.
You can go together one day.
Irene considers the idea. She enters Gattaca alone. Interior Gattaca Aerospace Corporation Computer Complex Day. Irene prepares a stack of ID photos of crew members for the investigator. She closely inspects the doctored photo of Jerome, hesitating before adding it to the file. The camera dwells on Jerome's vacant workstation. The investigator curiously regards the empty chair. He is accompanied by Detective Hugo, Detective Joseph, and Irene.
He's the only absentee. A little nausea, quite common.
At least it's nothing contagious.
I will not permit any further testing on the eve of a mission. We're already counting backwards.
The investigator ignores Joseph and takes a pocket knife from his jacket. He prizes out the escape key from Jerome's keyboard, places the key in the specimen bag, and deposits it in his jacket.
I'll call and let him know.
The investigator gently, firmly removes the phone from Irene's hand and replaces the receiver in the cradle. Let's not spoil the surprise. I understand you can show us the way. The anxious Director Joseph calls out to protest one further time, but the investigator is on his way out the door. Exterior street outside Gattaca Day. Outside the entrance to Gattaca, trying to hail a taxi, Jerome is startled to see a car carrying the investigator, Detective Hugo, and Irene roar out of the driveway. Jerome calls on his portable wrist phone. Interior Eugene's condominium day. Eugene, at his window, filling satchels as usual, hesitates before answering the phone.
Hello?
How would you like to be yourself for the day?
I was never very good at it, remember?
Interior Eugene's condominium hallway day. With a look of resolve, Eugene hangs up the phone. He wheels his chair up to the sweeping staircase and regards the first of many dozen steps. The daunting staircase spirals way above him. Interior investigator's car day. Hugo drives. The investigator looks to Irene in the rear seat. You don't know who he is, do you, Irene? He hands her pillbox found in Michael's. You think you have problems. Interior Eugene's condo, Jerome's condo, day. Having wheeled his chair out of sight, Eugene eases himself out of his wheelchair and onto the floor. Using his elbows commando style, dragging his lifeless legs behind him, he proceeds to crawl across the floor and up the first step of a long spiral staircase. We observe his agonizingly slow progress up the staircase that, from Eugene's point of view, appears to have doubled in length. Exterior condominium complex, day. The exterior and the investigator and Detective Hugo emerge from their car with Irene in tow. They take in the impressive complex. The investigator gets a glimpse of the empty pool. They approach the intercom at the entrance. Interior Jerome's condo, day. Eugene, bathed in sweat, finally crests the landing of the staircase. No respite. As he drags himself across the floor, the internal phone rings. He frantically stretches up and knocks the phone off its hook so he can talk from his prone position on the floor. Interior condominium lobby, day. Irene is on the phone, closely watched by the investigator and Detective Hugo.
Hello?
Jerome?
Hello, sweetheart. Come on up.
Interior Jerome's condominium, day. With no mean effort, Eugene finally manages to replace the phone on its cradle. He desperately crawls up to the sofa. However, spying the upright vacuum cleaner in the open closet, he is forced to crawl there and remove the vacuum bag. He frantically crawls back towards the sofa and stuffs the bag behind a cushion. Interior Jerome's condominium, day. Irene enters the door, deliberately left ajar, closely followed by the investigator and Detective Hugo. Eugene is propped up on the sofa, TV remote placed in his useless hand to cover his paralysis. He has a stainless steel bowl next to him and has crossed his lifeless legs for more natural effect. Eugene calmly motions the confused Irene towards him.
Sorry. Where's my kiss?
The investigator scrutinizes Eileen's reaction. With only the merest hesitation, she takes her cue from Eugene and kisses him affectionately on the forehead. She perches herself on the arm of the sofa. Eugene takes the opportunity to rest his arm on her leg.
Good to see you're feeling better.
Now you're here. Who are your friends?
It's about the director.
Then
The investigator slowly encircles Eugene, regarding him with utmost scrutiny. He compares his face to the Dr. GATTACA ID photo, a passable likeness. Eugene bends toward the bowl and dry retches.
forgive me for not getting up.
Irene puts the comforting hand on Eugene's shoulder.
Couldn't we do this another time?
I don't believe so. Detective Hugo takes a seat in the chair beside the sofa and unpacks the syringe from the kit he carries. Detective.
This won't take a moment.
Detective Hugo swabs Eugene's inner arm. All eyes are trained on the tip of the needle as it punctures the vein.
It's okay. Maybe they can find out what I've got.
Under the investigator's watchful eye, Detective Hugo withdraws the syringe and immediately inserts a small amount of the blood into the portable analyzer he wears. Naturally, it confirms that Eugene is Jerome. Irene does her best to conceal her shock. Hiding his frustration, the investigator distractedly tours the room while Hugo packs up his gear. The investigator idly toys with the telescope pointing out the window. Next, he wanders towards the closet and reaches for the doorknob. Mind if I take a leak?
As long as you don't do it in my closet. over there.
Interior Jerome's condominium bathroom day. The investigator immediately pulls a specimen bag from his jacket pocket and closely inspects the stainless steel toilet and sink. They are both spotless. The shower stall is also scrupulously clean. He flushes the toilet and exits. Lost in thought, the investigator approaches the closet again and wheels out Jerome's upright vacuum cleaner. He is disappointed a second time to find no vacuum bag inside. The investigator returns the vacuum cleaner to the closet and produces a mini vac from Detective Hugo's crime bag. May I?
Clean the whole house if you want.
Actually, the kitchen needs doing.
The investigator switches on the mini vac to take a specimen from the floor, then promptly kills the machine. Looking down, the investigator notices the trail of Eugene's perspiration on the highly polished floor leading to the spiral staircase. Eugene, reading the investigator's mind, goes to call out, but the words remain frozen on his tongue. Hugo follows his superior as they start to descend the stairs. Irene and Eugene are left staring at one another. Interior condo staircase day. Jerome catches the merest glimpse of the investigator and Detective Hugo before he slips behind a doorway in Eugene's condominium. Jerome anxiously regards Eugene's empty wheelchair sitting there on the stairs. Hugo's phone rings.
Yes? Yes? Yes.
The investigator is already at the door of the stairs in Eugene's condo when the detective calls to him.
Come quickly. We have him.
The investigator's eyes light up. He retraces his steps up the staircase after Detective Hugo. Interior Jerome's condominium day. Jerome, white as a ghost, climbs the stairs, emerging into his own condominium. He embraces the beaming Eugene, still sitting on the sofa.
How are you, Jerome?
Not bad, Jerome.
How the hell did you get here?
I can always walk. Fake it.
Jerome almost laughs despite the situation. Only now does he notice Irene on the other side of the room, her mind racing. She looks at Jerome and Eugene together and runs from the apartment.
Irene?
Jerome goes to follow, but Eugene stops him. Interior crime laboratory day. An extreme close-up of dried blood, brittle and cracking on a pair of soiled latex gloves. A latex head mask, suit of clothes, and shoe covers are similarly caked. The investigator and Detective Hugo watch as a white-coated forensic technician feeds a miniature sample of the dried blood into an analyzer. The investigator wanders over to a one-way glass window through which he can observe the director Joseph sitting numb but strangely serene in an interrogation room. The investigator, in a state of shock himself, cannot yet bring himself to believe what is plainly obvious. This can't be him. The detective regards his superior incredulously, intrigued that he could still cling so stubbornly to his theory in the face of such overwhelming evidence.
We found his spit in the dead director's eye. He signed the confession. Supplied us with the suit he wore that night. What more do you want?
Luca could still be an accomplice. The investigator turns away, unwilling or unable to accept the explanation. Hugo regards the investigator with a trace of sympathy. He furtively retrieves the investigator's tissue from the trash. Interior GATTACA day. Jerome sits in a formal briefing room with the other crew members of his mission, receiving their final pre-flight instructions. Lamar looks on approvingly. Finally, I'd like to welcome Navigator Morrow on his debut mission. If we get lost out there, nobody has a map of the heavens in his head like Jerome. Jerome looks up bashfully. I'm gratified that there is no longer a cloud hanging over tomorrow's launch. Now we can put this unpleasantness behind us and concentrate on the task at hand. I don't have to tell you how important this mission is. The belt could hold the key to the origin of life, why we are what we are. I know many of you have been asking that question about me for long enough. Jasper, how could something so ugly hold so many beautiful secrets? Polite smiles from his colleagues. Enjoy your final evening with your families. We'll all be a year older when they see us next. And don't be late tomorrow. You don't want to miss this. We focus on Jerome. He appears to have his head in the heavens already. Interior crime lab night. The tormented investigator lies on the floor of his lab, staring at the ceiling. He winces in discomfort. He is lying on something. He rolls over and retrieves the irritation from his pocket. It is the escape computer key he pried from Jerome's keyboard. He gazes at the key for a moment and then gets to his feet. He resurrects an old fingerprint kit from the cupboard. Carefully removing the key from the specimen bag marked Morrow, Jerome, he begins to dust it for a fingerprint. He places the key under a camera. The enlarged print appears on the left-hand side of his computer screen. The word match blinks onto the screen. However, the face that appears from the computer's databank is not that of Morrow, Jerome, but Luca, Vincent. The investigator regards the photograph in disbelief. Detective Hugo casually enters the lab, something odd in his nonchalant demeanor. Hugo, I found him.
I found him too.
A fingerprint. There's something to be said for nostalgia. What did you find? Investigators discarded tissue. The investigator does not realize it.
It's not exactly him.
Where did you get this? The investigator immediately deposits the tissue onto an analyzer.
This man does share some common characteristics with your suspect. Not so many, but enough. It appears the eyelash has a brother of a kind.
The investigator realizes the significance and looks guiltily to Hugo. Hugo exits the lab, leaving the investigator to stare at his own face in the analyzing machine. Interior Gattaca janitor's locker room night. Caesar, the old janitor, enters the locker room. He's about to wearily open his locker when he senses another presence in the room. He turns to find Jerome sitting there on a bench. Although clearly delighted, Caesar tries to disguise his pleasure. Caesar.
I'm coming, I'm old. So you finally seen sense and come back to your old job, Vincent.
Not yet, I'm afraid.
No? What's keeping you?
Guess I'm a slow learner.
I guess so. Well, while you're up there, maybe you could tidy the place up a bit.
See what I can do.
The two men embrace, Caesar breaking off before Jerome.
Don't go getting everybody lost out there. They'll give us a bad name. You won't have me to keep an eye on you, you know.
By the way, I left some trash in your locker.
I'll take care of it.
Jerome departs. Caesar watches him go and turns back to his locker. He opens it to find a brand new high-tech telescope sitting inside. The old janitor gets over his surprise and beams broadly. He looks back in Jerome's direction, but he is gone. The old janitor cannot help himself and reverently reaches for the telescope's eyepiece. Interior Gattaca computer complex night. In the dimly lit, empty computer complex, Jerome takes a last look around. He sits at his computer one final time, replaying the graphic representation of his path through the cosmos that he is on the eve of taking for real. He notices the key missing from his keyboard. Instantly realizing the significance, he rises from his seat to flee. Vincent? Jerome is stopped in his tracks by the sound of his given name and the voice that calls it. He makes no further attempt to flee, but turns to face his pursuer. The investigator steps out from the shadows. Vincent, what are you running from?
From Vincent.
The two men face each other for the first time in a long time. The investigator is transfixed by Jerome's face, scarcely able to believe his eyes. Has it been so long? You don't remember who I am?
Maybe it's you who's forgotten. What are you doing here, Anton?
It is finally apparent the investigator is Jerome's younger brother, Anton. I could ask you the same question. I have a right to be here. You don't. Jerome smiles at him condescendingly.
Almost sound like you believe that.
Come with me now, Vincent. You've gone as far as you can go.
It's a few million miles to go, yeah.
It's over.
Is that the only way you can succeed, Anton? See me fail?
For the best.
God, Even you want to tell me what I can't do. In case you hadn't noticed, Anton, I don't need rescuing. But you did once.
Anton is clearly stung by the memory.
Well, you have all the answers. How's that possible?
You didn't beat me that day. I beat myself.
Who are you trying to convince?
I will prove it to you. Come swim with me now, Vincent. Now. Tonight. Jerome regards Anton with a knowing smile. Somewhere in Gattaca, a phone rings. Interior, exterior, Irene's car outside condominium complex. Night. Irene, sitting in her car outside Jerome's condominium, hangs up her portable phone. In her agitation, her finger involuntarily goes to her pulse. She catches herself and removes the finger from her wrist as if it has burned her. She exits the car. Interior, Jerome's condominium, Eugene's condominium. Night. Irene quietly knocks on Jerome's door, but there is no response. Trying the handle, the door opens. Her curiosity takes her inside. All is quiet. Irene calls out.
Hello?
No reply. Irene hesitantly ventures further, drawn to the spiral staircase. She tentatively makes her way down the stairs and into Eugene's dimly lit condominium. With wonder and reverence, she examines the instruments and samples laid out on Eugene's workbenches. She opens the refrigerator in the bathroom and inspects the samples and sachets. Finally, she regards the empty incinerator.
Quite something, isn't it?
Irene turns. Eugene has entered through the mirrored door, not at all displeased by her unexpected visit.
That's why we get rid of the traces of him, although we never truly succeeded.
Been looking for him. Do you know where he is?
He's probably leaving some more of me around the place before he goes.
Eugene idly inspects one of the blood sachets.
Don't be deceived, Irene. These are just clothes. He has to wear them, something I could never do.
What's wrong with him?
You may have more in common than you know.
Irene's hand involuntarily goes to her heart. Oh.
Oh.
But they say he's already 10,000 beats overdue. I have my doubts. For all my gifts, they could never engineer me a heart like Vincent's.
Irene turns back to the incinerator, lost in thought. Exterior beach night. Jerome and Anton walk down the dune together towards the beach, not far from Gattaca, an ocean beach pounded by an angry black sea. Jerome picks up a sharp piece of shell and slices the end of his thumb. A drop of blood oozes out. He offers the shell to Anton, but Anton does not take it. Both men begin to disrobe. The brothers stand beside each other on the sand once again. Anton still the more athletically built of the two. Together they enter the raging surf, diving through the breaking waves. They begin to swim. In the moonlight night, we watch their two bodies swimming side by side. They swim a long distance, Anton waiting for his brother to tire. But the pace does not slacken. Anton pulls up in the water. Sensing his brother is no longer beside him, Jerome also pulls up. They tread water for several yards apart. How are you doing this, Vincent? How have you done any of this?
Now's your chance to find out.
Jerome swims away a second time. Anton is forced to follow once again. Angry now, gritting his teeth, Anton calls upon the same determination we've witnessed during his constant swimming in the pool. He puts out a spurt, slowly reeling in on Jerome. Anton gradually draws alongside Jerome, certain that this effort will demoralize his older brother. But Jerome has been fox waiting for him to catch up. Jerome smiles at Anton. With almost a trace of sympathy, he forges ahead again. Anton is forced to go with him. They swim again for a long distance. It is Anton who gradually becomes demoralized. His strokes weaken and his will draining away. Anton pulls up, exhausted and fearful. Jerome also pulls up. However, his face displays none of Anton's anxiety. They tread water several yards apart. The ocean is choppier now. The view of the lights on the shore is obscured by the peaks of the waves. Vincent, where's the shore? We're too far out. We have to go back.
It's too late for that. We're closer to the other side.
Anton looks towards the empty horizon. What other side? How far do you want to go? Do you want to drown us both? How are we going to get back? Jerome merely smiles back at his younger brother, a disturbingly serene smile.
You want to know how I did it? That's how I did it, Anton. Never saved anything for the swim back.
Oh, hi. Anton stares at Jerome, aghast. The two men face each other in silence, treading water several yards apart in the dark, rolling ocean. Jerome turns and heads back toward the shore. Anton is left alone in the terrifying realization. The only sound, the wind and the water. Exterior condominium night. Jerome, disheveled and distressed, arrives back at the condominium. He notices Irene standing at the edge of the pool. She turns. He approaches her. They stand several yards apart, looking into each other's eyes. They do not speak. Jerome abruptly pulls a hair from his head. For once, one of his own.
Here. Take it.
Irene takes the hair, the significance not lost on her.
You're still interested, let me know.
Jerome contemplates the hair in his fingers for a moment, then deliberately lets it fall to the ground.
Sorry, wind caught it.
Once again, there is not a breath of wind. The hair lies plainly visible on the edge of the pool. From an upstairs window, Eugene observes the couple. Interior Jerome's condominium, night. We watch the silhouette of Irene and Jerome making love in the bedroom. Interior Jerome's condominium, night. Eugene, sitting in his darkened room, unscrews the cap of a plastic container and places it on a nearby table. We remain on Eugene's face as he opens his fly. Interior Jerome's condominium, night. Irene and Jerome lie in bed together after making love. For once, Jerome is able to sleep unconcerned. It is Irene who lies awake, head against Jerome's chest, listening to the sound of his erratically beating heart. However, it has a soothing effect on her. She kisses Jerome and reluctantly rises from the bed.
Year's a long time.
Not so long. Just once around the sun.
Jerome smiles. For once, Irene seems to be looking forward to the trip. She exits the room. Interior incinerator, morning. Inside the incinerator, Jerome scrapes away at himself for the final time. He wistfully regards the brush in his hand. Interior Jerome's condominium, morning. Jerome, dressed for his departure, emerges down the spiral staircase into Eugene's condo. Jerome notices several suitcases at the foot of the stairs. Eugene wheels into the room.
I have your samples ready.
Have you forgotten? I don't need any samples where I'm going.
No, but you might need them when you get back.
Eugene wheels across the room and opens the mirrored door. The water vapor billows out. Jerome regards Eugene. Eugene leads Jerome inside for the first time. Inside are 2 rows of 4 identical industrial refrigerators. They contain thousands of blood and urine specimens. Jerome regards them with awe and more than a little unease.
Everything you need to last you 2 lifetimes.
Eugene points out the extra specimen of semen in the first refrigerator.
It's an extra specimen. I wish I could give it to her myself. But then you were always better at being me.
Eugene leads the way out of the refrigerator room.
Why have you done this?
In case you get back before I do.
Where are you going?
I'm traveling too.
Jerome goes to question Eugene's travel plans, but thinks better of it. He kneels before his friend and embraces him.
Thank you.
I got the better end of the deal. I just lent you my body. You lent me your dreams.
Jerome smiles and hugs Eugene a final time. Eugene stuffs an envelope into Jerome's pocket.
Not until you upstairs.
Jerome exits. Eugene watches him go. Interior Gattaca Departure Lounge, night. Jerome enters a large holding area along with his other 11 crew members. Jerome's heart sinks as he recognizes Lamar greeting the crew for one final unexpected substance test. His colleagues groan good-naturedly, but it is clearly far more than an inconvenience to Jerome. He looks towards the door as he just entered, but there's no way back. One by one, the crew are ushered behind a screen. Before he can think of a way out, it is Jerome's turn. He enters the cubicle.
What's this, Lamar?
New policy.
From behind, we see Jerome unzip his fly. However, for once, Jerome does not urinate on cue. unused to operating his own equipment in front of the physician.
Like, got you nervous?
What's the problem, Lamar?
Did I ever tell you about my son, Jerome? He's a big fan of yours. He wants to apply here.
Jerome realizes he has no choice. Resigned to his fate, he begins to fill the cup.
Just remember, Lamar, I could have gone up and back and nobody would have been the wiser.
Unfortunately, my son's not all that they promised, but then who know what he could do.
Lamar takes the cup from Jerome in his gloved hand. Jerome anxiously watches his sample poured into the analyzer. Confirming Jerome's worst fears, the face of 20-year-old Vincent appears on the computer screen. However, Lamar does not look at the screen. He stares Jerome in the eye.
For future reference, right-handed men don't hold it with their left. It's just one of those things.
Never looking at the screen, Lamar presses a button marked valid.
Have a safe trip, Vincent.
Jerome exits up a long enclosed escalator, realizing that Lamar has known all along. Interior Eugene's condominium night. Eugene knocks back a vodka. With a certain reverence, he places his silver medal around his neck. Interior escalator. At the top of a long escalator, the door to the craft is secured. Interior Eugene's condominium. Eugene's wheelchair, empty, sits beside the door of the incinerator, also secured. Exterior launch pad. A close-up of the flames of the rocket engines igniting. The ball of fire engulfs the launch pad, filling the screen. Interior Eugene's condominium, incinerator. Inside the incinerator, another ball of fire, this time engulfing the unseen figure of Eugene. We glimpse the metal around his neck, melting in the fierce blaze. Exterior Gattaca launch pad. As we have seen so often in the past, a rocket launches into the sky over Gattaca. However, on this occasion, it carries Jerome. Interior spacecraft night. We focus on Jerome's face, seeing little, if any, of the craft. Jerome's eyes are closed. His head is still, alarmingly still. Could the launch itself have been too much for him? We hear the thoughts in his head.
We came from the stars, so they say, and it's time to go back. If I was conceived today, I would not get beyond 8 cells, and yet here I am. In a way, they were right. I don't have the heart for this world. The question is, why am I having so much trouble dying?
Jerome's eyes blink open. He holds the letter from Eugene in his hand. It contains no words, merely a lock of Eugene's hair, for once preserved solely for its sentimental value. The hair, weightless, floats up off the page. We focus on a portal hole looking out upon the starscape. As we pan across the constellations, a title is superimposed upon the starscape. In a few years, scientists will have completed the Human Genome Project, the mapping of all the genes that make up a human being. After 4 billion years of evolution by the slow and clumsy method of natural selection, we have now evolved to the point where we can direct our own evolution. The first title is replaced in the heavens by a second title. If only we had acquired this knowledge sooner, the following people would never have been born. The succession of portraits and photographs of renowned historical figures fades in and out of the constellations. The accompanying titles list their affliction rather than their accomplishments. Homer, blind from birth. Napoleon Bonaparte, epileptic. Colette, arthritic. Lou Gehrig, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease. Rita Hayworth, Alzheimer's disease. Helen Keller, blind and deaf. Stephen Hawking, Lou Gehrig's disease. Jackie Joyner-Kersee, asthmatic. Charles Darwin, chronic invalid. The face of Charles Darwin fades off and another title appears out of the stars. Even Charles Darwin, the man who told of the survival of the fittest, numbered among our frailest. The titles fade off and is replaced by one final title in the night sky. Of course, the other birth that would surely never have taken place is your own. Fade to black, the end. All right. That was quite the journey. Thank you, Five, for taking us there, and thank you all for watching as well. This has been Gattaca, and have a good night.